Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a delightful morning to you all. On behalf of the organizers, I welcome you to this event, Gas-to-Power Stakeholders Engagement. The theme is Power Sector Sustainability, Framework Implementation Assurance. There have been one or two iterations of the theme backed by careful planning, thinking, and consideration before arriving at this final version, which we believe is fit for purpose. At today's event, we'll spotlight a sustainability framework for the gas-to-power value chain, highlight short-term liquidity stabilization measures, and discuss medium to long-term structural reforms. This event, jointly hosted by Gas Aggregator Company Nigeria Limited GACN and Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading PLC NBET, promises to be an interactive session. So as you listen to the presentations, note down your questions and comments as we seek to maximize the diversity of stakeholder representation in the hall. I trust that we'll have insightful and productive discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, as we proceed with this event, please be advised of the following announcements. As I usually like to say at events of this nature, please ensure that your weapons of mass distraction, your WMDs, are in vibration mode. That, of course, I refer to your mobile phone. So wherever you are, please take out your mobile phones and put them in vibration mode. That will help us to reduce or eliminate all forms of distraction as the event progresses. You've been well advised of the locations of the safety exits, and yes, you've also been well advised to keep your personal possessions in your line of sight at all times. And yes, restrooms are adequately provided on this floor. If you step out of this hall through any of the exits on my right-hand side, by the time you get to the registration area, you may choose to walk straight or turn left. You'd find restrooms either way. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I trust that we'll have a great time today. The theme remains Power Sector Sustainability Framework Implementation Assurance. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Temiloluwa Anwobiogbon. It is my job to ensure that you have a smooth and enjoyable ride at this event. I am the master of ceremonies. Talk is my business, and talk is what I do. Allow me to beg your indulgence. Please rise for the national anthem of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians old and proud to serve our sovereign
God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I have the singular honor of recognizing the Honorable Minister of Power, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Mogaji Joseph Tegbe, who's represented by the Permanent Secretary, Alhaji Mahmood Maman. A round of applause for him. Thank you very much, sir. We trust that you bring glad tidings from the Honorable Minister of Power. You're most welcome, sir. It's an honor to have you with us today. The Honorable Minister of State of Petroleum Resources, Gas, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Right Honorable Ekperikpe Ekpo, is represented by none other than the Director, Gas Department, Ministry of Petroleum Resources, Mr. Elisha Benjamin. You're most welcome, sir. We trust that you bring glad tidings from the Honorable Minister of State. Thank you, sir. You're most welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, also joining us at this event is none other than the Special Advisor to the President on Power, newly minted, if you please. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lanre Babalola. A round of applause for him. Thank you very much, sir. You're most welcome. It is an honor to have you with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have in the room with us the Commission Chief Executive of the NUPRC, Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Mrs. Orishemeiwa Eyesan. Round of applause for her. Thank you very much, ma'am. It's an honor to have you with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, the Authority Chief Executive of the NMDPRA, Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Mr. Rabiu Umar, is represented today by none other than the Executive Director Economic Regulations and Strategic Planning, Dr. Olashupo Agbaje. Round of applause for him. Thank you very much, sir. We trust that you bring glad tidings from the ace of NMDPRA. Thank you very much, sir. You're most welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, the Executive Vice President, Gas, Power and New Energy, NNPC Limited, Mr. Olalekan Ogunleye, is represented by the MD NGPIS NNPC Gas and Power Investment Services, Mr. Ibrahim Hamza. Round of applause for him. Thank you very much, sir. You're most welcome. It is an honor to have you with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the singular honor of recognizing the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Gas Aggregator Company of Nigeria, GACN, Mr. Chijioke Uzo. A round of applause for him. Thank you, sir. It's an honor to have you with us today. We also have the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading PLC, NBET, Mr. Johnson Akinowu, FCA. Thank you, sir. You're most welcome. It is an honor to have you with us today. Also joining us today at this event is none other than a member of the Board of Directors of GACN, Mr. Nwachukwu Aniagolo. Round of applause for him. Thank you, sir. It's an honor to have you with us today, and we recognize your presence. You're most welcome, sir. It is an honor to have you with us today. I'd also like to recognize the presence of the members of the management teams of GACN, NBET. A round of applause for all of them, please. Members of staff of GACN, NBET, IOCs, power generation companies, you're most welcome. A round of applause for you all. Representatives of all of our sponsors, UBA, First Bank, Zenith Bank, please give them a sponsors round of applause. A sponsors round of applause. You know what I mean. Aha. Thank you very much, members of the press here with us. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, you are most welcome. I trust that, yes, we'll have a most interesting session as we look forward to listening to the presentations as will be delivered today. All right, we'll get straight to the business of the day. Please join me to give the welcome address, the MD CEO, GACN, Mr. Chijioke Uzo. A round of applause for him. So steps forward to give the welcome address.
Good morning. Permit me to stand on existing protocols. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and it is my distinct pleasure to warmly welcome you all to the strategic gas-to-power sector stakeholder engagement convened under the theme Power Sector Sustainability Framework Implementation Assurance. Let me begin by sincerely appreciating your presence and continued commitment to the advancement of the Nigerian energy sector. The caliber of participation represented here today reflects our collective understanding that the future sustainability of Nigeria's power sector will not only depend on policy directions, but more importantly, on coordinated implementation, commercial alignment, and sustained stakeholder collaboration across the gas-to-power value chain. Today's engagement comes at a very critical period for our industry as rapidly evolving market dynamics continue to impact decision-making metrics, investment confidence, and operational stability across the value chain, even as national energy demands continue to grow across the different market segments. Nigeria's industrialization aspirations are expanding. Electricity access remains central to economic productivity, economic competition, and inclusive national growth. Consequently, the need for reliable, affordable, and sustainable power has never been more urgent. These realities reinforce one important truth. The long-term sustainability of Nigeria's power sector cannot be achieved in isolation. It requires a fully integrated gas-to-power framework anchored on commercial discipline, payment assurance, supply reliability, operational excellence, and policy consistency. In this regard, ongoing federal government initiative towards power sector debt resolution and market stabilization represent important steps towards restoring confidence within the Nigerian electricity supply industry. These interventions demonstrate increasing recognition that market sustainability must be supported by bankable commercial structure, improved settlement discipline, and enforceable market obligations across the value chain. Equally significant is the continued implementation of the Nigerian Decade of Gas agenda, which strategically positions Nigeria's natural gas as a key driver for energy security, industrial development, and economic growth. In today's global environment, natural gas remains critical to balancing affordability, reliability, and sustainable energy access, particularly for emerging economies such as Nigeria. However, unlocking the full value of our gas-to-power resource will require more than declaration of intent. It will require practical execution, implementation discipline, and sustained market confidence. This engagement provides an important platform for critical stakeholders across the gas-to-power value chain to engage openly, constructively, and find practical pathways capable of advancing sector sustainability. As the strategic aggregator within the Nigerian domestic gas market framework, GACN remains fully committed to supporting market coordination, domestic gas supply optimization, and commercially sustained gas utilization in alignment with our energy objectives. The objectives of today's engagement are therefore clear. One, to encourage frank discussions across ongoing implementation of structural and commercial market intervention, to strengthen alignment between policy intentions, regulatory implementation, and market realities, to continue ongoing deliberations for practical mechanisms that improve liquidity and payment assurance, to enhance confidence across the gas-to-power value chain, and to identify practical and collectively aligned implementable actions capable of improving long-term sustainability and sector resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, no single institution can independently resolve the challenges confronting the gas-to-power value chain sector today. Sustainable progress will require shared responsibility, transparency, accountability, and continuous collaboration amongst all stakeholders. This is why engagements such as this are extremely important. They provide opportunity to move past the traditional fashion of re-emphasizing challenges and fragmented interventions to a more coordinated, integrated implementation approach capable of strengthening confidence across the gas-to-power ecosystem. The conversations we have here must ultimately translate into stronger collective resolve to unshackle ourselves from the current market narratives. Once again, thank you for honoring our invitation and for your continued dedication. I look forward to a productive and impactful deliberation. Thank you, and I wish us all a very successful session. Thank you.
All right, you heard it. Changes in policy direction must be backed by coordinated implementation. And yes, continuous stakeholder collaboration is a sine qua non. MDCO GACN has indeed raised critical issues that will serve as the bedrock of today's discussions. And yes, with that welcome address, he has indeed set the tone for this event. Allow me to beg your indulgence. Please give the GACN MD, Mr. Chijoke Ozo, another round of applause for that welcome address. Thank you, sir. Thank you for those words. For the opening remarks, please join me to welcome the MDCO NBET, Mr. Johnson Akinawo, FCA. A round of applause for him as he takes the stage for the opening remarks.
The Special Advisor to Mr. President on Power, Dr. Lanre Babalola. The representative of the Minister of Power, our dear PAMSEC, Maman, the representative of the Minister of State for Petroleum, Oil and Gas, the Chief Executive of NUPRC and NMDPRA, Chief Executives and Management of Generation Companies, International Oil Companies, sponsor banks, colleagues at NBET and GACN, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's indeed a pleasure to be here this morning to be participating in this very important event. In other climes where you have one entity, the Energy Ministry, it is one entity and it's easier to run. But in our climb, we have the Minister of Petroleum and then we have the Minister of Power. It is supposed to be a weakness, but it should be a strength because the mere definition of synergy is where two entities working together derive greater value when the collaboration is real and functional. So I say the Ministry of Petroleum, Oil and Gas, Ministry of Petroleum generally, and the Ministry of Power, I see these two entities are Siamese twins, joined in the middle. So synergy and working together collaboratively is the only way in which the collective value of being together for mutual benefit to achieving the respective mandates of the two entities can be attained. In the words of Henry Ford, coming together is the beginning, staying together is progress, working together is success. The most powerful force in the energy sector is not technology, it's not capital or policies. It is what happens when all three come together. Gas to power is, at its core, a story about synergy. It's about what becomes possible when upstream gas producers, midstream infrastructure operators, power generators, off-takers, regulators, and financial institutions stop operating in silos and start functioning as a coherent, interdependent system. The value that each player cannot unlock alone becomes not just possible, but inevitable when the chain is properly connected. We have seen too painfully and too often what the absence of synergy has cost us in Nigeria. Stranded gas that cannot reach turbines, power plants running below capacity because fuel supply agreements were misaligned, tariff structures that make investment unattractive, each link in the chain performing its own functions, yet the system as a whole under-delivering. So the opportunity we have today is to recommit ourselves to greater collaboration, greater alignment, to attain that much-needed synergy. So the opportunity before us is to rewire that relationship, to design a gas-to-power framework where incentives are aligned, risk are fairly allocated, and every stakeholder wins when the system performs. So I charge you this morning as operators in our joint sectors to engage with candor, frankly, providing solutions, ideas that will enhance our collaboration and build our synergies. Thank you, and let's have a good time.
To have a power sector that we can all be proud of, synergy among stakeholders is a critical success factor. Thank you very much, sir. MDCO NBET, Mr. Johnson Akinowu, FCA CFAN. Allow me to beg your indulgence. Please give him another round of applause for the opening remarks. All right, we'll move straight to take words from the EVP Gas, Power, and New Energy of NNPCL. And yes, he'll be represented at this event by none other than the MD NGPIS, Mr. Ibrahim Amza. Please, a round of applause for him, speaking on behalf of Mr. Olalekan Ogunleye.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Permit me to stand on the existing protocol. Mr. Olalekan, the EVP Gas and Power, sends his apologies. And though I know that for weeks now, he has shared his thoughts and worked with GACN and NBET, leading to this event. Even yesterday, I happened to see the MD GACN with him, just to, cross the T's and dot the I's. So he is fully invested in this program today, this morning. And I believe that he would have loved to be here himself, given his role, interest, and passion in the gas space. But nevertheless, he has sent me a message that I should convey to you. So I'm just going to read his message to you. Distinguished colleagues, industry leaders, regulators, partners, stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me begin by commending GACN and NBET for convening this important engagement at a time when collaboration and coordinated action across the gas-to-power value chain have become more critical than ever. The sustainability of Nigeria's power sector is directly linked to the strength, stability, and commercial viability of the gas sector. As we all know, gas remains the backbone of power generation in Nigeria. And the long-term success of the electricity market will depend significantly on our collective ability to ensure reliable gas supply. Improve payment discipline, strengthen infrastructure availability, and restore confidence across the value chain. Now, over the years, liquidity challenges, legacy debts, and structural inefficiencies have continued to place pressure on sector participants. However, ongoing efforts by the federal government to address these issues demonstrate a clear commitment to stabilizing the market and creating a more sustainable framework for investment and growth. At NNPC Limited, we recognize the importance of building a commercially viable gas-to-power ecosystem that supports energy security, industrial development, and economic growth. As a strategic player across the gas value chain, we remain committed to working collaboratively with critical stakeholders including producers, transporters, power generation companies, regulators, and financiers to support practical and bankable solutions that improve the sector performance. Today's engagement provides an important opportunity for frank and solution-oriented discussion around liquidity sustainability, debt resolution implementation, gas supply assurance, and broader market coordination. More importantly, it gives us an opportunity to align on practical next steps that can strengthen confidence and support long-term sector stability. NNPC Limited remains ready to continue playing its part in supporting initiatives that improve the sustainability, efficiency, and bankability of the gas-to-power value chain. We recognize that collaboration, policy consistency, commercial discipline, infrastructural development, and execution certainty remain critical enablers for unlocking long-term value across the sector and delivering more reliable outcomes for all stakeholders. Finally, I would like to encourage us all to engage openly, constructively, and with a shared commitment towards finding workable solutions that move the sector forward. Thank you, and I wish us all productive deliberations.
On the path to attaining energy security, focused on industrial development, we must indeed ensure that all hands are on deck. Thank you very much, sir, for those special remarks as delivered by the EVP Gas Power and New Energy NNPCL, Mr. Olalekan Ogunleye. That was the MD NGPIS who spoke on his behalf, Mr. Ibrahim Hamza. Thank you very much. Please extend our warm regards to the EVP. All right, we have a number of goodwill messages that will be delivered in quick succession. Hopefully, we'll be able to breeze through all of them in the shortest possible time. Please make welcome the Commission Chief Executive of NUPRC for her goodwill message. Please make welcome Mrs. Orishamewa Ayesan, CCE, NUPRC.
But not just because I'm standing in as the Commission Chief Executive. Did you realize I'm the only lady sitting in front? Indeed, it's my honor to be here to give this goodwill message. This is not the first time we are meeting to discuss this topic. I was trying to recollect. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. And I was trying to just go down memory lane. I recall sometime in 2009, let me even flip back, 2008, we started a conversation and we came up with dumb gas, solution. And it was really to address this problem, lingering problem, that government had given several incentives to deal with. And we said, okay, let's segregate part of our budget for domestic gas. And it was mainly focused on power. We segregated for several years. The needle did not move. Again, to speak to my brother's point, we've been working in silos. The upstream working, infrastructure not moving along with upstream supply. And you have the power distribution companies not even moving at all with anybody. So we've been working and talking for decades. And yet, we've barely moved the needle. Today, Nigeria is sitting on 215 TCF of gas. Layer that on the whole of Africa. The whole of Africa prides itself of 625 TCF of gas. So you can just visualize how much of that chunk Nigeria is sitting on. Today, we shouldn't be talking about meeting domestic needs. Today, what we should be really discussing is how to meet regional needs, given the enormity of resources that God has endowed us with. So it's obvious that we haven't done it right. We've been working in silos. We've come up with initiatives, and one of the things I find, sometimes you just grandstand for the sake of grandstanding. I've had to challenge my colleagues to say, the government has said, net off debts from royalties. And some people have come back to say, it's not going to cut it for us. Gas royalties alone won't cut it. We need oil royalties, and we even need much more than that. And some of us say, no, 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 the approval is just gas royalties. You know? Now, if we continue to grandstand, we won't make progress. The country will suffer, the continent will suffer. And just to remind us, when we started the energy transition story, you recall what happened to Africa. Nobody wanted to touch oil and gas investment in Africa until a few people said, okay, gas should be the transition fuel. And we said, okay, let's give gas a chance. But today, the story has changed. You might hate Trump, you might love him, but honestly, thumbs up for him. Because of Trump, we can talk about oil. We can talk about oil, and half of our gas is AG. About half of it is AG. So you need to unlock oil to unlock gas. So I am not here to give long lectures, but just to encourage us. We are all in our silos. If we don't break those barriers and come up with creative solutions, we will not make progress. 10 years from now, we will still be saying the same things, and it will be a big shame. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we go into deliberations, my plea is that we break the silos, we break the barriers, and we come up with creative hearts to proffer lasting solution to these critical problems that we must solve for Nigeria and Africa to make progress. So on that note, I wish us all a very fruitful deliberation.
All right, you heard it. It's not about whether Nigeria has the potential or the resources. We are indeed blessed. So it's about how we can make progress and expand the scope, not just to meet domestic needs, but to also meet regional needs. And yes, make progress we must. Salient points raised by the only lady in the front row. Madam CCE NUPRC, Mrs. Orisha Meiwa Eyesan. Another round of applause for her. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for those pointers. They will indeed prove useful as we proceed with the deliberations. Please make welcome the Authority Chief Executive, NMDPRA, Mr. Rabi Umar, represented by the ED, Economic Regulation and Strategic Planning, Dr. Olashpo Agbaji. A round of applause for him.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'll just also stand on the existing protocols. I bring you warm regards from the Authority Chief Executive, management and staff of the NMDPRA. I'm happy the CCE had taken on some very thought-provoking points here this morning, and that is for us to really ginger our thoughts and understand that it's time for action. So I'm just going to paint the other leg of it. She's talked about how we've done this for so many years and we're still where we are. And the result of all of that is not looking too pleasant right now because we're beginning to see, gradually we were seeing a closing in of gas to commercial volumes, closing in on gas to power. So gas to power had always been the lead volume mover in the markets. So you have gas to power, gas to commercial, and then GBIs. So, but what we are observing recently as NMDPRA is we observe that trend where you see a closing of these volumes. And the disturbing part of it is that in the last few months, we're beginning to see commercial offtakes overtaking power offtakes. And so that is happening. Usually you see this kind of trend when you are deep into the rainy season where NEC relies more on hydro power. But even before getting to that period, we're beginning to see that commercial. Yes, so there's a lot of activities going around the commercial space. So one of the questions that we should ask ourselves in this program, what is it that commercial is getting right that the power sector is not getting right? Because the commercial volumes are shooting up, the gas volumes not necessarily stagnating, but they are remaining, it's gradually taking second place. That should be a source of concern for us, and I think we should look at it deeply. And in looking at it, it should be around what is it that is happening in the GBI segment that has maintained some relative stability? What is it that is happening in the commercial space that has given it that growth? And where are we as far as the power sector is concerned? I think we have a lot of the answers to these questions. And we should begin to look at how we will address this elephant in the room. Yes, we know that there are a lot of challenges in the power sector. We know so many operational issues and all of that. But that elephant in the room, we should not avoid taking on any subject. The NMDPRA has worked closely with NEC over the years, and in so many areas, and that's why we have, for instance, a technical working group that looks at all the issues. So year in, year out, we come in and try to address those specific issues that we can actually take on. And this will continue. So this is a concern for us. The authority is here for the whole program, and we are well represented here. We will take on your positions, take on your views, and continue to work with our partners as it was mentioned earlier. This is a cross-sectoral, very cross-sectoral. The survival of one depends on the other. So we must work together. As much as I want my gas suppliers, and I see a lot of them in the room this morning, I want the suppliers to do good business. We also must ensure that the off-takers survive. We must ensure that the power sector survives and the country survives. So, good morning, and we will do our best to take in all that is discussed here and contribute our perspectives also. Thank you so much.
Words well spoken by the ACE NMDPRA, Mr. Rabi Umar. And yes, that was the ED Economic Regulation and Strategic Planning, Dr. Olashuko Agbaji. Thank you, sir. Please extend our warm regards to the AC NMDPRA. Moving very quickly, the chairman NERC, Dr. Musili Oseni, is represented at this event by none other than the Director, Economic Regulation Division, Abba Ibrahim Terab. Please, a round of applause for him as he steps forward to give the goodwill message on behalf of the chairman of the NERC. You're most welcome, sir. It's an honor to have you with us.
Good morning, all, and permit me to stand on the existing protocol. I'm here to represent, to give goodwill message on behalf of the chairman, Dr. Musili Oseni, who is the chairman of Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. I think this stakeholder engagement organized by GACN and NBET is quite timely in view of the developments we're expecting to happen in the immediate near future within the power sector. We have made considerable effort between NEC and NMDPRA within the past few years to see how to attain sustainable market between the gas-to-power sector. As you know, the power sector relies on gas. Our energy mix so far, nearly about 80% relies on gas-fired power plants. So it means gas is integral to the survival. But the issue is always, how do we meet the expectations on the gas side? And in this regard, I think this engagement should look at the lessons that we can be able to draw from some of the immediate past arrangements or structures or framework put in place just to address the major issue. The major issue in the room is how do we ensure that we have effective gas-to-power contracts within the gas-to-power value chain. And to attain this, in 2022, when the sector and the power sector almost achieved near cost reflective levels, we're able to put in place the gas supply and fund, gas supply stabilization fund, which has enabled sustainable gas to power payments, and that has improved gas availability to the sector. And if you recall, maybe the Gencos in the room will understand last year, this recurrent shortage in terms of gas supply during February, March, we didn't experience it as much because of the build-up and ramp-up of gas based on the confidence built through the gas GSSF framework. So I believe also here now, as part of this engagement, what worked under the GSSF, why was it not sustainable? How do we achieve a sustainable framework? I think that's the main issue. And very good that we have policy, regulatory operators all within the room to see how we can have alignment and convergence between the gas-to-power policies and regulatory framework to ensure that we achieve a sustainable market for the gas-to-power. As the comments made by NMDPR just immediately is a bit worrisome to the power sector, given that initially we are confident that, okay, the gas supplies, which is most of the associated gas, will naturally come to the power sector because of the volume we are taking. But now that there's a stiff competition coming from the commercial and gas-based industries, then we need to up our game. And hopefully, this engagement will give us the opportunity to discuss and see what policy initiatives and regulatory frameworks that can be put in place to address some of the concerns and work towards a sustainable gas-to-power market. I believe there are enough experts within this room to have some of these solutions. So I hope and wish all participants here a fruitful and very productive deliberation. Thank you and good morning all.
Thank you very much, sir. Director, Economic Regulation Division, NERC, Abba Ibrahim Tara. Please extend our warm regards to the Chairman, NERC, Dr. Musili Hussaini. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have yet another goodwill message to be delivered by the Honorable Minister of State of Petroleum Resources, Gas, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Right Honorable Ekperikpe Ekpo. And yes, those words will be delivered by the Director, Gas Department, Minister of Petroleum Resources, Mr. Elisha Benjamin. A round of applause for him as he takes the stage.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just taking a look at the ladies in the house. And I want to commend the CCE and UPLC. And I think we need more of that. Those are my thoughts anyway. I beg to stand on the existing protocol. The Honorable Minister of State, Gas, is unavailable, absent. He traveled with the President to Kigali. These are his words to the gentlemen in the House. Distinguished participants, esteemed stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to extend my warm goodwill message to all participants at the GACN/NBET. I commend the organizers for convening this important gathering at a time when sustained collaboration across the gas and power value chain is essential in strengthening Nigeria's energy security. One of the most important achievements in advancing the gas-to-power sector agenda has been the successful securing of presidential approval for the framework to settle the long-standing legacy debt owed to gas producers and suppliers. This decisive intervention addresses obligations that have accumulated over many years and has constrained cash flow, weakened confidence, and discouraged fresh intervention in upstream gas settlement. Government has sent a strong signal of commitment to commercial discipline, market stability, and more tangible gas-to-power value chain. The benefit of this milestone are far-reaching. It is expected to restore investor confidence, improve liquidity access to gas and power value chain, stimulate renewed exploration and production activity. These gains also align with the wider achievement of the Decade of Gas initiative, which continues to reposition gas as the backbone of Nigeria's energy transition and economic transition. Under this initiative, Nigeria's gas production has risen from 6.9 billion cubic feet per day in 2023 to about 7.5 billion cubic feet per day in 2025, where domestic gas supply has increased from 2 billion cubic feet per day threshold for the first time. In addition, over 1 billion cubic feet per day of additional gas supply has been unlocked through firm gas supply agreement. The Decade of Gas has also helped to improve confidence in the sector through major upstream final investment decisions, including ACN, UBETA, and HIGH, which have mobilized significant capital towards expanding gas development. Complementing this progress are measures aimed at strengthening the domestic gas market, including efforts to maintain affordability through a reduction in the 2025 domestic gas base price. I therefore encourage all participants to use this forum to deepen collaboration, strengthen commercial alignment, and advance practical solutions that will further enhance the resilience and efficiency of the gas-to-power value chain. The cooperation before us are sustained and partnership between government, regulators, gas producers, transporters, power generation companies, and investors. Nigeria can build a more resilient, affordable, and sustainable energy development in the future. Please accept my best wishes for fruitful deliberation and successful outcomes at this forum. I am confident that your discussions will contribute meaningfully to the growth of the gas-to-power sector in Nigeria. Thank you, and God bless you. These are the words of the Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Elisha Benjamin, Director, Gas Department, Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Please extend our warm regards to the Honorable Minister of State of Petroleum Resources, Gas. So we'll move straight to the next goodwill message, and that will be delivered by the Honorable Minister of Power, Mogachi Joseph Tegbe, represented by the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Power, Alhaji Mahmuda Maman. A round of applause for him. So takes the stage.
A very good morning to you all, and let me also align myself with the well-established protocol. First, I want to extend the warm felicitations of my Honorable Minister Designate to this forum, and also congratulate my dear brother, Mr. Larry Babola, on his appointment as the SA Power. Distinguished stakeholders, it is a profound honor to stand before you at this landmark Gas-to-Power Stakeholders Forum with the theme Power Sector Sustainability Framework for Implementation. This gathering could not be more timely than now. It speaks directly to the heart of Nigeria's energy crisis and reflects the caliber of strategic thinking and collective action our nation urgently requires at this pivotal stage of development. The Nigeria's power sector continues to wrestle with fundamental constraints, the challenges of gas supply to the power sector. Despite our vast reserves, our power plants operate far below their installed capacity due to gas supply challenges. Based on widely circulated statistics, Nigeria currently has an installed generation capacity exceeding 14,000 megawatts, with the thermal contributing about 80% and hydro about 20%. However, the actual production hovers between 4,000 to 6,000 megawatts. This paradox, driven largely by gas supply concerns, is one we can no longer afford to tolerate. The consequences are far-reaching. Industries struggle to compete globally, social amenities operate under constant threat to power failure, small and medium-sized enterprises, the backbone of our economy, are weighed down by high cost of self-generation, and the ordinary citizens bear these burdens daily. Simply put, the gas-to-power supply crisis lies at the core of Nigeria's developmental challenges. Esteemed colleagues, to ensure power sector sustainability, it is important for us to understand the entire value chain. We may first realize that from production, exploration to production, through processing, transportation, aggregation, contracting, and finally delivery to generation plant, any failure along the value chain translates directly into generation shortfall and load shedding. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, under the leadership of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu this administration is resolutely committed to resolving the energy crisis and unlocking Nigeria's economic potentials through a robust and reliable power sector. The renewed hope agenda places energy security at its core, with gas-to-power as critical pillar. One landmark intervention is the constitution of the Presidential Committee on the Settlement of the Outstanding Debt owed to generation companies. This initiative sent a clear signal to GENCOs that their lenders, gas suppliers, and the international community, that the federal government takes responsibility seriously and is prepared to mobilize the highest level of authority to resolve these structural impediments. I wish to commend the Gas Aggregator Company of Nigeria and the NBTE for convening this forum, as the gas aggregator and the bulk trader respectively sit at the nerve center of the gas-to-power value chain. Their collaboration underscores the reality that our challenges can be resolved through coordinated and multi-stakeholder action. Distinguished participants, it is also important to know that until every segment of the entire value chain, from gas field to power sector boundaries, is fully functional, reliable and affordable electricity for all will remain elusive. I therefore implore all participants to engage in sustained in solution-based openness, enduring partnership, and above all, a firm commitment to provide sustainable electricity to all Nigerians. I wish to reaffirm the Federal Ministry of Power commitment to remain steadfast in its mission to achieve energy sufficiency. Together, I'm confident we will chart a brighter course to Nigerian gas-to-power sector. I wish us all a very fruitful deliberation. God bless and thank you all.
Words well spoken by the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Power, Alhaji Mahmood Maman. Thank you, sir. Please extend our warm regards to the Honorable Minister of Power. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for all of our goodwill messages. And yes, we'll have a group photograph right about now. I'd like to beg the indulgence of all our dignitaries. Please step forward for a group photograph. Paparazzi, that is your cue. Group photograph, after which we'll move to the presentations. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We will continue with the program. Thank you. We have several presentations lined up, and we intend to do justice to that. And yes, we have a very, very critical presentation that will be delivered any minute from now. After that presentation, we'll have a 30-minute tea break. So at this time, please ensure that you have your notepads ready while that presentation is being delivered. Please note down your questions. We'll have the opportunity for Q&A immediately the presentation ends. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we can all settle down. Thank you very much. Let's all settle down. Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Once we're done with that presentation, we'll have a short break. Then when we come back from the break, we'll have another presentation. That is on the implementation update on the power sector debt reduction program. After that presentation, we'll move to yet another presentation, securing the gas-to-power value chain. After which, we'll have a summary of deliberations and action points that we need to take to heart. And that will be followed immediately by the closing remarks and votes of thanks. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let us all settle down as we proceed with the first presentation for today. All right, enhancing the use of natural gas for power generation to ensure reliable and affordable electricity involves not only infrastructure development for gas-to-power projects, but also addressing liquidity challenges in the power sector. This then explains our focus on gas-to-power liquidity sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please make welcome the coordinator, Decade of Gas Initiative, Mr. Ed Ubong, for his presentation. Remember, as the presentation is delivered, please note your questions. We'll have that opportunity to ensure that that session is interactive. Please make welcome the coordinator, Decade of Gas Initiative, Mr. Ed Ubong, for his presentation.
Ably established by the earlier speakers in the morning. It's a privilege to be here to say a few words around the gas-to-power value chain and some of the thoughts that have come up in the past and hopefully also in the future. I've spent some time talking about the Decade of Gas Initiative, which the Honorable Minister had mentioned earlier, and why we think that coordinated link can drive a lot of the solutions in the gas-to-power space. Nigeria has significant volumes of gas, like the CCE had mentioned, 215 TCF, last count, approved figures by the NUPRC. My colleague Agbaje has mentioned how gas to commercial stays on a growth path, while power appears to have stagnated from the gas supply perspective. At the Decade of Gas, the gas to power issue is so important that it is actually a focus theme for us. You would see that box called D. Even though we have demand, supply, infrastructure as major pillars, gas to power is so important that there is a focus team just working that with all the members of the sponsors group, led by the focal Memuna, who will also be in the room. She's sort of the focal point for all the gas to power conversations. This is the picture for Nigeria's gas supply. And I know you may have heard different views, you may have heard different things, but Nigeria's gas supply since the swearing in of Bola Ahmed Tinubu in 2023 has been on the increase. Special thanks to all the gas producers who are in the room. They are owed, but they continue to make gas available to the GENCOs. That is the raw data. If you look at 2025, Nigeria's domestic supply has crossed 2 BCF a day for the first time in our history. It is a statement of commitment by NUPRC, NMDPRA, the gas producers, NMPCL. When someone tells you that there is no gas for power plants, it is only 1/3 of the story. Gas producers in 2024, supported by the Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Resources Gas, were very clear when they sent a message to Mr. President. Producers are willing to make available all the gas that power plants can take and generate and distribute, provided you do two things. You pay us when it is due, and you provide the right coordination framework to ensure that issues of settlement are properly resolved. And Mr. President approved that in principle on the 4th of April. Give us as much gas as we can take. If we do not pay you, you are free to net off the gas payments from your royalty, which makes sense. Gas producers are tenants in Nigeria. They live in a big house, which is Nigeria. They pay the Nigerian government rent. But as they are also tenants, they also run a small business. For the sake of clarity, maybe that business is that they are selling food. Nigeria family has been going to that restaurant and eating on credit. The whole family. What is even more interesting is that they have told the seller of the restaurant that we will determine the price of the food that you will eat. Gas producers have agreed to all of this. Yes, we will continue to sell the food. We will continue to give your family the food that you need. But landlord, we are just asking, please, when you have not paid us for the food, can we reduce that food money from the rent that we continue to pay you? This makes sense in any kind of commercial conversation. And that was why Mr. President approved it. Go ahead, get this going. Gas must continue to get to the power plants. Last year, we pulled together a lot of people, different groups of people, big workshop, just bouncing ideas. The NBET CEO was there, the minister was there. It was chaired by the EVP Gas and Power, New Energies and NPCL. Great conversation, we agreed many things. This is what was very clear to us, that to try to solve the power problem, we needed to work from gas producers on one end, all the way to consumers at the other far end. And everybody had challenges. Everybody had issues. Everybody wanted to do one thing or the other. Gas producers, all they wanted was pay us if we give you gas. NGIC plays a critical role in moving gas from the producers to the GENCOs. They are owed. The GENCOs generate electricity. They need to send that via TCN to the DISCOs. What is the challenge? Ladies and gentlemen, even if today all the gas in Nigeria was sent to the GENCOs, Nigeria's electricity will not increase. The reason being that there is a highway that needs to be fixed to allow GENCOs to increase production and generation. And you can see that that sits where we have the TCN bit. So that highway, that corridor, a lot of work is already going on there. The government has spent quite a lot of money trying to move that bit. But that part of the value chain needs to be fixed. The discos are also in the room. The last minister increased the tariffs. 2023, 2024, the official reports are that the collection of gas receipts has increased. Over 75% of it is collected. That 75% collection has not translated to increased payments all the way back to producers. So we need to ask ourselves the question, what do we need to do differently? And I see NBET in the room, who will probably be able to give a little bit of a clue. Part of it is transmission losses, but I suspect there is probably additional information that would help to understand why you collect 75% closer to that other end, but you remit less than 30% when you get towards the back. But irrespective, key message here was that end consumers, producers, we all needed to work together if we were going to make the gas to power and gas to electricity successful. And I mean, we had started the work at the bottom of the page. You will see where we began to ask who would be doing what. Minister of Petroleum here, SA Energy, SA Power now, I think some of that. So you could see that some people were going to work a lot more closely towards the producing end. Some people were going to work a lot more towards transmission end. Some people were going to work a lot more towards the consumer end. And in analyzing this, we said, these were some of the things that needed to happen. Settlement of gas producers' debts, royalties was stopped. Yeah. We were going to say, okay, we needed bonds because bonds allowed us to run all the way from the gas producers to the end consumers. We could then pay GENCO some of their bills. We could then pay the discos if there were shortages because that was just cash available. Smart metering, I mean, you'd already seen that the ministry had already started that work. It was also a big chunk of the work that needed to happen by the discos at the end of the consumer. But what you see is this page. We spent quite a lot of time in Q1 with the Ministry of Power, Dio, the TA to the Minister of Power, just saying, because these solutions were so multiverse, who was going to do what? And what we were then doing was trying to develop a summary for each of these initiatives. What is happening here? How far has it gone? What needs to be done to sort of accelerate it? There is a discussion about gas to power debt. Total quantum, 70% of it is money owed to the producers. That is why it is so important that if you have a 100% problem and you solve 70%, in any exam, you are beginning to pass. If we do not fix that issue that sits around the producer's side, you can give all the money to the discos, to the GENCOs, you can spend a lot of money in the transmission. If you do not have gas producers giving you gas when you want it, you have not started the solution. On the producer side, it is clear. So that's 70% of what is owed. We know what it is. At the Decade of Gas Secretariat, we spend weeks and weeks doing reconciliations, NEC, NBET. We know what it is up to 2025. Of course, there's new debt coming to 2026. The President's royalty approvals, we've begun conversations with NUPRC on how, and you heard CC mention it, on how that is going to be implemented. A little bit of a delay because of the NUPRC NRS interfacing, but I started with Fashina on Monday, so we're sort of working how that can be accelerated and then sort of closed out. In all of this, gas producers have not stopped sending gas to power plants. Moving away from supply is the issue of pricing. And here, of course, we move very quickly to what Agbaye sort of referred. The DBP marks the price that gas producers will sell gas to power plants. This has been the trend. As at 2025, that price was at the lowest level it has been in Nigeria's 15-year history. And there with the late A's, we ask the question, this price has reached this bottom. There is no other place it can go. In his wisdom, after he had done his analysis internally, we also sort of shared with him the weighted average operator's cost. What you see as the dotted line at the bottom was where the cost, and you could see that the cost and the pricing had coincided. So after consulting his team, doing his work, he increased it slightly to 218. That is where we are with pricing for power. It has moved slightly from its lowest level at 213 to about 218 per MMBTU. The issue is not pricing. NMDPRA has been on top of its game. It's continued to engage stakeholders, pulling data with NUPRC, trying to understand what is your cost. I want the price to be at a level that it is either at your cost or slightly above. Again, producers are not making significant cost profits. So we are okay with pricing, country-wise. And I think George I showed there was an example of the letter that NUPRC sent out. Most importantly also, we have tried to build the demand picture. Who really needs gas, additional gas, new gas, because Nigeria's gas production between now and 2030 is going to increase from about 8 BCF, 7.5 to 8 BCF now, to about 12 BCF. So who are the project promoters that will take gas? You can see that power bucket. Those are the power plants. NDPHC alone says that they want 175 million scoff of gas a day. We said, okay, fantastic. So we pulled them together. We invited the World Bank. They start with the World Bank. They're beginning to work. What do you need to be able to actualize those volumes? What changes do you need on the infrastructure? Because we are busy, we need to try to connect the demand projects with financiers. Also, we need to connect them with the infrastructure that needs to be built. The most single infrastructure development in Nigeria in the past maybe 5 years has been the successful completion of the OB3 crossing by NMPC. Congratulations to NMPCL who are in the room. It's been a big issue, a big bottleneck, but that crossing has been successfully completed by the GCO, the EVP, and his project team. But what it then means is that potentially between now and next year, 300 to 500 million scoff of gas a day will become available in the domestic market. Who will take it? In answering the who will take it question, it became clear to all of us, if we looked at this with our eyes open and without sentiments, that you needed a relief valve that would take some of that gas to export. That relief gas is in place, or that relief valve is in place. If the power plants don't take it, because they are always the biggest off-takers, some of that gas will go to export because Nigeria still needs to earn significant foreign exchange from the export market. Whether we link that to WACP, we link it to LNG, but those linkages need to be in place on infrastructure-wise to ensure that we do not have stranded gas. You can see more exciting projects being listed by NGIC for completion. There will be an improvement on the Alps. Great work being done there around the Alps compression and midline compression system. There's an expansion on the Escravos Odidi leg to ensure that the likes of Nekonde, Chevron can bring more gas into the Alps. But again, there's been a lot of thinking. The AKK this year, we should be able to commission the Abuja leg. So a lot of thinking, a lot of work being done by various stakeholders to ensure that we have a robust gas supply system to provide Nigerians with the gas that they need. Two themes Mr. President was very clear about. Gas for cooking must be affordable and available. The power plants should not keep telling us the story that there is no gas. The gas minister is committed to deliver that presidential mandate. He will make gas available to the power plants as much as is needed, as long as we have put the commercial payments structure in place and we are able to evacuate that generation. If we can't evacuate the generation, nothing is going to change. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my message. Nigeria has significant gas resources. Nigeria's gas supply is increasing. It will continue to grow. You've heard CCE, you've heard Agbaje. It will continue going up. 12 BCF is what has been signed with the GCO by 2030. That growth trajectory, we monitor it every month. We report it. We are seeing it heading in the right direction. The infrastructure that needs to be built to take gas from where it is produced to where it is needed, work is ongoing. We have recorded a significant success. More volumes will become available. The price of gas has been set at a point where it is affordable to power plants. So pricing is no longer the problem. That is even being reviewed every year by the NMDPRA, checking it, trying to understand what the issues are. Like GACN MD said, the most important bit, and also like the NBET CEO said, is that we must stay connected across that value chain end to end. If someone has said they're going to put meters in place, they need to do it. If someone has said they're going to expand the transmission highway for more generation to get to the discos, it needs to be done. If someone says that they have an installed capacity of 12, someone needs to confirm whether that is really the installed capacity. If you have not used a turbine for many years, the day you are called upon, you may discover that instead of 12, you may only have 8 available. So the GENCOs also need to check and validate with NEC what is our real installed capacity. We need to continue to talk to the gas producers. If you say you have supplied 100 million SCOF, can the GENCOs confirm that that was supplied? We need constant reconciliation. This is the only way we will succeed to move our energy aspirations in the right directions. Thank you.
Very, very insightful presentation. Mr. Edubong, just as we discussed, we'll have a Q and answer session. So please would have, yes, sir, Q and answer session. Thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, that was a very insightful presentation. We still have Mr. Edubong on standby. So yes, this is that time when the session becomes interactive. If you look around you, you'd find people dressed in white, and there's a gentleman wearing black. So if you have any question, just signify by raising your hand. And yes, you should have it. You should have questions. So let's have questions and comments. If you have any question, just signify by raising your hand. We'll pass the microphone to you. Just stand up, introduce yourself, and go straight to your question. Keep it short and simple. Thank you very much. If there are comments, we'll also take them. All right? So let's start to move around.
So my name is Emmanuel Akobelem. I'm from Renaissance. Thank you so much, Ed. I thought that was quite good. Incidentally, Madam Eyeson spoke earlier about the issues with gas to power, and I think she said something which I found really profound, that I would like to, grandstand. And the reason she said that, and I think I can relate to the point she made, is particularly around this gas to power, is when you look at the letter that approved implementation of getting our debt back via royalty, it didn't say anything about gas royalty. It just said you claim your money against royalty. But what we have found, and she did talk about it, is when you then wanted to claim your money, you were told, oh, sorry, you have to claim against royalty. And the problem with that, that you cannot reclaim that money over 3 years. Because, of course, gas royalty is small. And suddenly you have a problem. How do you then reclaim everything if, on the one hand, nobody said do this? So really, there has to be some clarity of policies, and implementation needs to be consistent. Because on the one hand, you have very clear letter from the president, which, by the way, was written to us in 2024. But again, it took over a year for us to then begin to claim in December 2025, a year plus. Think about that. That is value. And some of those debts started from 2012, at the time when Naira to dollar exchange rate was. And as of today, it is. Think about this, contrasted in Naira, in dollars, paid in Naira, and then at what exchange rate? That was a problem, something to be clear about. The other issue I have is you say something about, and yes, gas price has dropped considerably, or had dropped in 2025 to $2.13, which, like you said, was the lowest we've had for a long time. I don't have a problem with that. My biggest problem with gas price is the continuous yo-yoing. I don't care if you make it $2, right? I would love it if it's higher. I want you to calm down. I would love it if it is higher because it will help make my project profitable. However, wherever you keep it there or make it higher so that I can project. When I invest on a project and I say I'm investing at $2.20 or $2.19, don't come next year to make it $2.15, because then the basis of my investment jumps out of the window. If it's $2, then if my project is not profitable, I will not invest. But if I invest on a certain basis, I want to have that reflected over time. And this has implications because of the PIA says every year advise me a new gas price. And Dr. Agbaja and his people will always give you a new gas price. But the problem is, if it's low, then I have a problem. If it changes, I have a problem. So can we have a world where we either have one gas price which is readvised every year for at least 10 years, or we make it very clear that we just have this price and can no longer go any lower than that? Thank you very much.
All right, maybe because you were the first person, okay, we would really appreciate it if you can keep the questions very short. 1 minute tops, so please let's just try to compress those questions so we can maximize time and take as many questions and comments as possible. Sir, do you want to take the questions
I can speak to Emma's two questions very quickly. So the first one is speed of implementation. But I think we just need to take CCE's words that NUPRC is working on this and they're going to fix this. Like I said earlier, there have been a few movements. We've had NRS, NUPRC. So things have changed a little bit also on how you manage the royalty process. But you had our commitment that she's sort of going to get that to the point where things become a lot stable. The second issue on pricing is the one you're talking about, predictability. I see Agbaje in the room. It's a question of law. So on one hand, the PIA says, check the business environment and determine what is the right price at that point, especially if you have not achieved market maturity. So today, or well, in the last 2-3 years, NMDPRA has taken that piece of law as what it says. And they've also, I'm sure, consulted their legal teams What we have done on our side has been to try to engage them to be sure that as they implement the law, that we are not necessarily, as an industry, left without assets. And of course, GACN is also in the room. He has his own views also on what pricing works for the whole sector, because he sees all these demand centers come to him for pricing. So I think it's a recommendation I think you put as part of the workshop outcome, that pricing should be a little bit more predictable, and I'm sure this will be taken up by NMDPRA. On implementation, I stand on CCE's words.
All right, remember, we're also taking note of all the deliberations, the recommendations, and the action points, so keep them coming. All right, let's move the microphone around. If you have the mic, please rise for your question.
Good morning. My name is John Kadiri. Ed, thanks. My comments stroke question, starting from where you stop, the issue, the way I see it, is not really about pricing or price. In the export markets, there is no fixed price. Prices move every month, but the basis for pricing is known. It can be tested, it can be modeled so that you can plan your projects. Ed, my question to you is on selective implementation of laws and policies. We have agreements that recognizes how exports, domestic gas priced in dollars and paid in naira, leading to true-up that Emmanuel mentioned should be handled. When I was in my former world, I had a running battle with NBET, NEC. That aspect of the agreement we had was kind of covered, but some other rules are implemented. So how do we have trust and confidence in what you are doing or what is being done to ensure that there are no selective application and implementation of rules? Thank you.
Yeah, John, thanks. John is the executive secretary of the Association of Local Distributors of Gas. It's what, just giving a background of where his question is. But NBET is here. NEC is here. Yeah, but I think, irrespective of, and I think the top of the house, the senior business leaders also realize that the Nigerian power sector is not where it needs to be. It will need a lot of nurturing. I think also that they have not been unnecessarily aloof, saying that they must get all that they want. I think that the market is at that point where there is give and take, there is nurturing. GACN MD always says it's, Ed, if we can connect the silos, we'll move a lot faster. But I think it's at that point, even though Mr. President has been very bullish in granting most of the requests, he has always asked the question, you must ensure that there is a safety net for the most vulnerable. What that means is that, yes, there is sometimes the letter of the law, but there is also the spirit of the law conversation. Even NUPRC and NMDPRA, for instance, the law says that they should have started collecting penalties from upstream producers if they do not meet the DGDO. They've never done it. It's not that they do not know the law. They do not see the penalties that need to be implemented, but they're saying, but we want this man to just, can we work this out in a way that allows the system to grow. And I think it's that conversation that has driven GACN MD to call this workshop. We all have our wishes at different extremes, but if we sit together, provided that we've all agreed that we need to move forward, we'll be able to find a path that allows us to move forward by not, on one hand, not necessarily holding on to our views 100%, but if two partners generally want to move forward, there will be some compromise. The law is the law. If it's not perfect, with time, it can go back into the NAS to be modified. But that conversation means that we have to continue to work the solutions together. Nigerians need power. We need electricity. That is the pivotal point. How we get it, what we need to do, I think is why this workshop is here.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's move it around very quickly. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ed. So a couple of quick questions. What's your view on how quickly we can move to the mature market? And how feasible do you think it is to reflate the GSSF if we're going to move back to that era in dollars, so that we avoid what happened in 2023 when the GSSF had been, in fact, funded at the start of the year, but because of the change in exchange rate between the naira and the dollar, it got extinguished very quickly. So those are the two questions I have. Thank you.
No, thanks. Thanks, Yagola. I think the key message is with so the A's last year said, Ed, this whole thing around pricing, DGD, or a lot of the constraints we are seeing, the PIA has this caveat that when we get to a mature market, things will be running mainly willing buyer, willing seller, and all of that. The answer is that today we have not clearly defined what that mature market is. So, so the sponsors group, at the Decade of Gas, have approved that we should spend the next maybe 9 months talking to various stakeholders. What does a mature market mean? What is needed to get there? So that's part of the next sprint of work at the DOGS, trying to turn what in the PIA is a phrase, mature market, but what does it mean? Is it volume driven? Are there key levers that you need to see before you can say that you have gotten to that point? So we'll do that piece of work, of course, by getting feedback from various stakeholders. NBET probably has a different definition of what mature market means from electricity perspective. Same thing with NEC. So we need to have those broad stakeholder conversations and get to a point where we say, this is how we see a mature market, of course, with significant benchmarking from other global economies. And then once we have that clearly signed off by all of us, I think that the NMDPR will need to take that back to the National Assembly to see if there is an amendment that needs to be made, or a corollary that says, that section of the PIA that says mature market, this is what it means. But that's the piece of work we need to do between June and hopefully finish it by the end of December. That's the mature market question. I think there was a second question. Oh, GSF funding, that's NBET. So between NBET and GACN, I think they will be able to paint that. But I think you can see it's one of the things we had there. We need to begin to ask ourselves, now that the CBN has done a fantastic job, the exchange rate is becoming more predictable and clearer. How are we able to provide? Basically, what we are saying is set aside some funds to help this more stable. But I think NBET MD probably has views around that. And I'm sure during the detailed conversations, he'll be able to throw some light if he's beginning to think about it. But yes, the GSSF was one of the options that we thought if we begin to fund it, it will provide additional monies to settle some of the issues. And maybe also, some of the excess bond money raised in the bond market should be funneled in there. So these are all thoughts. Yeah. So dollar in dollars. So I think that's secondary question on how. So what you're asking, the question you're asking is a treasury question and it's a CBN question. So I will not preempt the CBN governor's answer on how much of Nigeria's money should be kept in dollars versus how much should be kept in naira and what purpose. But I think if you make the case, it's something that GACN and NBET can also take up and say, maybe CBN governor, this money is going to be spent in dollars, it's best being held in dollars. But it's a valid question to ask for.
Hello, sir. My name is Engineer B.A. Ishola. I'm from NISO. And I think if I can understand what you are saying, you are telling us that there's a gas available. It's only the liquidity that's the problem. But from the past year, the information we used to have, especially around January, February, March, the information we used to have is that there's a pipeline maintenance. Are you saying that this pipeline maintenance does not have effect on the gas availability if liquidity can be solved? Or what you are saying is that, yes, the gas maintenance during that period can affect gas availability for power. And if it can be like that, in power system, where you have energy mix, you have hydro, you have thermal, you make sure that you utilize your thermal very well between January and June, when the hydro will not be there. And you make use of the hydro around July, December. And in that period, when hydro, you have maximized the usage of the hydro between that July and December, you like the thermal to be on maintenance. Is it possible for the thermal unit and the gas pipeline maintenance to be within that period, so that by some time of January, February, March, when you need thermal most, gas will be available for them to use? Thank you.
Thank you. The NISO representative, I think you basically answered the question in the right way. I did spend a little bit of time discussing the efforts NGIC and NPC is making to improve infrastructure, which is basically pipelines, getting that ready. It is one thing to say gas is not available. It is one thing to say, oh, there's been a pipeline issue, which usually has a very definite timeline for fixing. A line has been damaged. We're going to be out of some volumes of gas for 20 to 30 days as that is fixed. Those are two different conversations. But I think you've also spotted the answer, which is on the generation side, how do I have a more credible mix, thermal, hydro, to ensure that when one is interrupted for whatever reason, the other steps in. And again, you can see that in that conversation, what NISO is saying is what NBET has said before and GACN has said before. Everybody needs to be talking to each other. In the upstream, plant maintenance is very clear. Upstream assets have their maintenance schedule when they're going to shut down. So I'm sure if you called NMPCL today, they will tell you when each of the gas plants will go down for preventive or statutory maintenance. There are the occasional issues when lines are disrupted, but I can also tell you very clearly that for 2025, the availability of the ELPs was over 95%. The whole of 2025, beginning of year to end of year, the availability of the NNPCL run ELPS line was over 95%. There was a pipeline issue in late February, March, which affected the western lines and then needed quite some repair, I think, by Shoreline. It did affect gas plants, but I think the beauty of what has now happened with the OB3 crossing is now that even if you then have that disruption, gas is going to be able to flow from the east all the way to power plants that sit in the west to provide that reliability. And I think GACN sits at that point where they can see how you can swing volumes depending on if there's going to be an infrastructure challenge. So yes, when I say gas is available, your issue is not gas. Will there be pipeline disruptions? Yes, but what the data says, and I'm very clear about just using data, availability has improved. With the work NNPC is doing, that availability can only go up. Liquidity then leaves the one issue that is within our hands and which we are then trying to solve, which causes your biggest issue. Even if you gave the Gencos gas today, can they generate enough to get to customers? Taking note that you as NISO know that what is the real transmission capacity that we have, taking into consideration the fantastic work the President has been doing to expand transmission infrastructure. Just means that that piece needs a lot of focus to close it, because at the end of the day, for electricity to get to customers, it has to pass through a very well-defined route. That route needs to be available. The same way you have spoken about gas needing to pass through the pipeline to get to the power plant. If the pipelines are not there, the volumes cannot get to where it is needed. Message, let's all stay connected and work each part of our value chain so that it adds up end to end.
Thank you very much, sir, for those responses, and that will be the end of the Q&A session.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the question and answer session. And yes, the focus has been on the Presidential Power Sector Debt Reduction Program and Liquidity Sustainability Framework implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to beg your indulgence. Please give the coordinator of the Decade of Gas Initiative, Mr. Edubong, yet another round of applause. Thank you, sir. Thank you for those remarks. Thank you for sharing from your wealth of personal and professional experience. For the next presentation, we'll focus on the implementation update on the Power Sector Debt Reduction Program. And just as in the mode of the first presentation, we'll also have the opportunity to ask questions and make comments. So yes, as the presentations are delivered, please just take note of those questions, and there'll be an opportunity much later to ask those questions. Thank you very much. As we comply and cooperate, we are officially moving forward. As you are probably well aware, the federal government has given the requisite approvals for the resolution of the legacy debt issue via a royalty offset and bonds combination. We'll now proceed to spotlight an implementation update on the Power Sector Debt Reduction Program. And we'll have two presentations that will be delivered in quick succession, one from NBET and another from NUPRC. Once we're done with those two presentations, the floor will be open for questions, comments, and yes, we'll have an interactive session that will ensue. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please make welcome the acting CFO of NBET, Emily Yenville. A round of applause for her as she makes her way to the stage for the presentation. Thank you very much. I would have thought that the energy level in the room would have risen astronomically because we just came back from break. Aha, that's more like it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Permit me to stand on existing protocol. Today, I would just run us through where we are in regards to the presidential debt reduction program that has been approved by Mr. President. This presentation is going to take us through 3 slides. The first slide would look at why this program was approved. The second one would go through with the implementation status so far. And then the last slide would look at what this means for the value chain. As we all know, the debt situation within the NESI value chain has accumulated over a long period of time. For the NESI, since NBET took over, it's roughly about a decade of debt liability that has accumulated to the generation companies. And any debt that has accumulated to the generation companies has also accumulated to the gas suppliers and also the gas suppliers and transportation companies. So you would see that the first slide talks about the gas supply, the second one talks about the gas transport, and then the third box talks about the thermal GENCOs generation, and then the fourth one looks at the NBET settlement discipline, and the last one looks at the market liquidity sustainability. So what has caused these delays? Or what has caused this debt? It's been the issue of payment delays. And the payment delays is not, it's as a result of the fact that we all know that there has been no approval to allow the tariff to be cost reflective. Hence, the distribution companies are paying only a fraction of their invoices. This has meant that debt has accumulated over a long period of time, and it has greatly impacted the NESI value chain. So what federal government thought would be reasonable is to look at a program which is controlled and which would create like a sustainable solution to ensure that the debt is cleared within the NESI value chain. NBET is currently the sponsor of the program, and NBET is ensuring that this debt is managed and cleared in a sustainable solution. So the mechanism currently in place is a bond program. This bond is in two bits. So there's the bond that we went to the market, raised the bond, and the cash is now used to settle a portion of the GENCO's debt. And then there's also a bond substitute, which is used to kind of balance off the other side of the debt. So there's the cash and then there's the bond. And what we are expecting is that at the end of the day, the debt that has accumulated for the period February 2015 to March 2025 invoices settlement period will now be used to the bond and the cash will now be used to settle these debts that have accumulated over that period. So where are we in regards to the implementation status of this program? So far, 24 of the generation companies have actually engaged NBET. There have been series of negotiations. There have been series of reconciliations. There have been series of haircuts with some of the GENCOs. And out of the 24 generation companies, 17 of them have executed their settlement agreements. So they came, they ensured that what was owed to them was verified. NBET had reconciliations with them. And part of the settlement agreements, we had conditions put in the settlement agreements was that the generation companies were also to engage with their gas suppliers and their gas transportation transporters to ensure that they reconcile the debts that they owe them as well. So these debts that the gas transporters and the gas suppliers owe is embedded, as we know, within the generation company's invoices. So 17 of them that have signed their settlement agreements, some of them have already started receiving monies. And then so far, 4 of those out of the 24 have actually progressed in regard to the negotiation and their settlement, the settlement process. Some of them are still engaging with the federal government in regards to how to structure it in a way that would also benefit them. Some of the key advantages of this program is that it's a sustainable way in which the debt will now be erased over a period of time. It's going to be a phased program. Currently, we have 3 of the GENCOs that they're still kind of trying to understand, and NBET is also trying to engage with them to bring them up to speed on the benefits that are associated with the bond settlement program. So the next is the impact so far. As I earlier mentioned, some of the generation companies like IBOM, FIPL, Geregu that had already signed their settlement agreements, they have already benefited from the program. Payments are already being made. Bonds are already being lodged into their accounts. So they have a visibility as to what is being offset against their debts. It's a phased program. This is the first phase that is being implemented. So yes, NBET went to the market, raised 501, 300 was raised, 201 was allotted against the debts that has accrued over the period. So the debts are currently structured in such a way that we've split it into like four phases. The first and the second tranche is for those that have executed their full and final settlement. They have already received the monies. But for the second and the third tranche, that aspect will now be after we go to the next phase of raising the bonds. At that point, that is when we would now settle that aspect of the money. So currently, we still have some of the gas suppliers that are related to some of the generation companies that are yet to meet up some of the CPs, in the sense that both those gas suppliers and transporters have not concluded on the reconciliation that is expected to be done between them and the gas suppliers, and also sign a settlement agreement. That is part of the CP that would enable NBET to release the monies for the current tranches that they are supposed to get. So what we can see is that the implementation of this program has already started. And for any of the generation companies that is yet to key into this program, it's better you get on board now. And because it is an opportunity for you to also see that some of these debts are being offset against your liabilities, and also to clear some of the debts that you currently owe your gas suppliers and your gas transporters. As we all know, debts would continue to accrue, but the sooner you get yours cleared, the better for you. And as we also recall, the previous presenter brought to our notice that there are royalties that will be offset against some of the debts that are owed the gas suppliers. So in regard to these royalties, it will be beneficial to NBET that these royalties are notified to us, just to avoid any double payment. As we recall, some of the royalties are between the period 2011, he said, 2025. So it will be beneficial that if those royalties are are notified to the gas suppliers, that those royalties are also notified to NBET, so that NBET will also be able to recognize those royalties against those payments. If not, there would be the issue of double payments to some of those gas suppliers. So that's the end of the status of the bond implementation so far.
All right, that was a very, very insightful presentation from NBET. And yes, that was delivered by the acting CFO, NBET, Emily Yenville. Thank you very much, ma'am. Another round of applause for her. We'll have a combined Q&A session. So yes, NBET and NPRC, then a combined Q&A session. So if you have any questions, just write them down somewhere. We'll have that opportunity once we have the next presentation. All right, to deliver the next presentation on behalf of the CCE NUPRC, please join me to welcome our next speaker, Executive Commissioner in charge of Economic Regulations and Strategic Planning at the NUPRC, Mr. Babajide Fashina. Round of applause for him as he takes the stage.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, captains of industry. Permit me to stand on already established protocol. This afternoon, I'm just going to take you on the status of the implementation of the NETOF. And I'm sure you heard so much from my chief executive this morning. And Ed has also given you a background to this. So I won't really go so much into the details, but to just like it's been said, the depth were between 2011 and 2024. And the accumulation was about 1 billion owed to the GENCOs. And the validated sum that we are looking at today is about 185. And we still have the balance, which is still in progress. So the mode of payment were to be from royalty relief, production cost relief, and the tax credit. That's on this side. And from the other side, as she just mentioned, the bond. And they were to be made based on no cash. So these were supposed to be from the federation account and minimal effect on the federal government revenue. So that was why it was proposed to have between 3 to 5 years period. And we also look at this to also say that if we are doing this, we also expect increase in production from the producers so that we can have more gas for generation. So if you look at this, you discover that for 3 years, we have more impact, and for 5 years, we have less impact. So we have that period that was proposed to Mr. President. And based on the approval, we immediately engaged, because royalty is a federation account. So we have to really align with NEC to get their approval before we can net off. So that was what initially took some time. But after we got the approval, and immediately we went on to work with the 6 approved companies on the validated claims. And I want to say on behalf of the CC that we've taken this as a credit to the companies, and we are working on the modalities of having this taken off. We quite realized that January 1, 2026 is the commencement of the NRS Act, and we have to work with them so that we can resolve this seamless transition in between them. So like the CC is saying in the morning, we have admitted this as credit for the companies, and we are working with them to make sure that we take this off. So, and we take all the feedbacks, and we are working collaboratively with all the teams to make sure that this is executed in line with presidential approval. Thank you very much.
All right, so there you have it. Indeed, the federal government is committed to ensuring that the issue of the legacy debt owed to the gas suppliers and GENCOs is sorted out completely. And we've listened to presentations from NBET and NUPRC. Allow me to beg your indulgence. Please give another round of applause to Mr. Babajide Fashina, Executive Commissioner, Economic Regulations and Strategic Planning, NUPRC. Thank you very much for delivering those words on behalf of the CC NUPRC. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the time is now for questions. So if you have any questions, just as we had in the first mode, just signify by raising your hand. We'll get the microphone to you. And please just keep your questions short and straight to the point. 1 minute each, so we can take as many questions as possible. I'd like to invite our speakers back up on stage so they can see those they're asking questions, and you can also face them as we speak. Ma'am, sir, please step back. Thank you very much. So we're going to make it as interactive as possible. Thank you. All right. You have the floor.
My name is Engineer B. Ishola. I think I realized from the speaker that the bond, especially from the one NBET is handling. And I realized that the bond is for from 2011 to maybe 2025 or 2024. My question, are we saying the bond will be continued because the debt will still be continued? I think we should look at what's the solution. If the bond is up to 2025, how about 2026, 2027, and go forward? Can't we look for what will be the last for this problem of liquidity in the market? We is more or less cost reflective.
Thank you very much, Engineer Shola. When my colleague was making her presentation, she said something, but maybe it wasn't very, she didn't emphasize much on it. You see, the bond is not a standalone solution. It's not one pill that will cure all the problems. It's one out of multiple programs of the federal government. That includes policy and regulatory actions that are being taken to address the bleeding going forward. So this is to address debt owed generation companies, and by extension, their gas suppliers and transporters, for the period from our standpoint, the commencement of the transitional electricity market in February 2015 to March 2025. That period needed to be cleared, while policy and regulatory actions by government, amongst others, addressing the tariff issue. Advanced planning and engagement has been ongoing between the regulator and the policy side, Ministry of Power and the Office of the SA Energy, to craft a tariff that addresses only subsidy for the poor and vulnerable, targeted subsidy, and then sculpt the tariff to cost reflectivity so that going forward the bleeding does not continue. Mass metering of 5.7 million meters through DISREP and the Presidential Meter Initiative to address the metering gap, and other DISREP program at the distribution segment to address the challenges at that end of the value chain. So it is not just Engineer Shola, this bond, then you do another bond, then you do another. That's not sustainable. So we have to address the backlog of the debt while other actions are ongoing. Luckily, we have with us today the SA to the President of Power, who's coming on board, very experienced with his own creative ideas and working with the regulator and other parties in the NESI to strengthen all this program and address the challenge going forward. So the bleeding is not expected to continue. Thank you.
Good afternoon. And I want to say thank you very much for that very comprehensive presentation, both to CFO and EC. My question is, you spoke about the timelines for the gas settlement agreement. So for people who have signed their settlement agreements, both from the gas settlement agreement and the GENCO settlement agreement, when are we expected to receive payments from that? There's no clarity along I know it's 4 tranches. I know that some people who signed before the start of the year might have gotten payment, but how about people who signed in the new year? When are we expected to get payment? And what are the timelines for the 4 different tranches? I also noted your concern, ma'am, on the royalty, and I just wanted to provide some clarity that indeed some of the debt that is being owed and is supposed to be offset through royalty, we don't have settlement. Some of us don't have settlement agreements that cover for it. So it's important that we have those 2 different modalities working concurrently. Thank you. I didn't introduce myself. My name is Halima. Thank you. Andy Weston.
Okay, thank you, Halima. And yes, definitely. Currently, we are still going to go to the market. We're looking at going to the market somewhere between June and July. And once we go to the market, we can now address the second tranche. However, for the next 2 tranches, we would have to liaise with the Honourable Minister and get further approvals to ensure that that particular tranche is now full and functional for us to go and source more funds. And then we would advise you on that timeline. If you had seen your settlement agreement, one thing you might have seen is to be determined. So that to be determined will definitely be communicated to you at the right time. And in regards to the royalties, as I earlier on mentioned, the royalties that are currently being negotiated with yourselves, we would expect that once those royalties are negotiated and signed off, then we should be notified for the period that is related to the debts that are within our portfolio, just to avoid that issue of double payments. So we would hope to hear from them as well.
Yeah, thank you. Madam CFO, congratulations. MD NBET, congratulations. My name is John Kadiri. I'm an independent consultant, Executive Secretary, Association of Local Distributors of Gas. NBET, I have an advice because I have followed closely the debt story in the Nigerian power sector for the past 15 years. What you are doing now, or what you have done, we should make it to be different from what has been done in the past. I will just go by public domain information. The debt you have acknowledged is about 3.3 billion. Trillion, sorry. What we hear is owed is about 6.5 thereabout. You mentioned haircuts. We hear in public domain up to 50%, but whatever it is, there has been haircuts. But on a 3.3 trillion, if your phase 1 is about 200 or so,
501.
501, whatever. Sorry, you know I'm from Edo State. We are not used to money. Trillion, I'm not used to counting in trillion. So pardon me. But suffice to say that what you are paying now is about 10% of the acknowledged debts. We've seen that level of success in the past that easily fizzled out and debt continued to accumulate. My advice, subject to fiscal implication, is that whatever has been reconciled, agreed, haircuts, aligned, all the agreements that are necessary, subject to CPs, should be accelerated and these debts liquidated without further delay. To avoid where you do phase 1, by the time you get to phase 3, another story that touch will come, like we have done in the past 15 years. That is my advice. Accelerate this, clear it, all the machinery you put in motion to avoid a recurrence, implement them so that we take this to the bank and all the operators will be happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kadri. Your points are well noted.
Okay.
All right. Good day, everyone. My name is Wanchuku. I'm from Chevron, also OPTS. So what is the, and also GACN, that's absolutely. Well, I was introduced initially as GACN, so that's already sorted. Thank you, MD. So maybe I'll start with a question for NBET. So what is the plan? So I have two questions, one for NBET and one for NUPRC. For NBET, what is the plan for debts accumulated between April 2025 and today?
As you heard my MD had mentioned earlier on, it's one of the discussions we're also having in this room, right? There are ongoing policies on, it's not, the bond is not the only solution to this sector. It's a lot of pollution, it's a lot of policies, regulatory actions by NERC, and several interventions. So therefore, right now, this is what we are using to sort the problem for 2015 to March 2020. Within this room, I hope that we will be able to put our heads together to put a stop to the bleeding going forward. So for now, I think.
Yeah. Just to clarify, I understand that. I had the earlier comments. What I'm asking is, so even if a policy is put in place today that stops the bleeding going forward, which would be amazing, right? You still have 11 months of debt that have accumulated between April last year and now. And so, 12 months, in fact, we're in May. So my question is not about the go forward. I recognize that there's work ongoing to address go forward. My question is about what's the new backlog. So there's a backlog which is being addressed under the current bond program, which has several tranches, of which I think 2 tranches have been paid. But there's another backlog, a more recent backlog, which is April last year to whenever the new policy, the policy to stop the bleeding is put in place. So let's say, for argument's sake, that policy is put in place by the end of first half of the year, which is the end of June. So there'll now be a debt between April 2025 and June 2026 that's not addressed by the policy that becomes effective July 1, 2026. My question is, that debt, what is the plan?
Thank you very much. April 2025 and onwards, within the fiscal space of, our principals will, NBET is a wholly owned entity of the federal government of Nigeria. So within the fiscal space of the 2025 budgetary appropriation, we are addressing that portion. We currently have a 76 billion submission with the Ministry of Finance, Accountant General. It's just waiting for the last button to be activated on the GIFMIS platform for GENCOs to receive that portion. So as the budgetary releases are made within the 2025 appropriation envelope, we are addressing that going forward. But the earlier statement we made about not just 2026, but 2026 and beyond, certain policy and regulatory actions need to happen, and it is happening. When I spoke, I forgot about the several transmission infrastructure projects going on to the tune of over $2 billion. The federal FGM Power Co. investments in the transmission upgrade, and the recent GAMCO initiative by the federal government to address enhancing the transmission network. So it is not one pill cure-all. This is just one out of multiple solutions that the government is implementing. Thank you.
Okay,
So good afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one other question, sorry. Yeah, thank you so much. So the second question is for Mr. Fashino. What is the time frame for generating the credit notes regarding the royalty payments? And is it now settled that the notes will authorize deductions from both oil and gas royalties? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So like I said in my presentation, already at the first engagement with the 6 companies, the amount validated have already been credited. So they are already credited in their account. So what we are doing right now is detailed reconciliation with the team to look at the details and to look at what will be transferred to 1/1/2026 to NRS. So just like what my CC said this morning, we took your comments and we are working on implementation. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon all. My name is Israel Oka from NNPC. I want to ask questions specifically for 2 power plants. One is the Obai IPP and the second one is MEP. I do recall issues around the payment from the Presidential Power Initiative. We received a deed of settlement, unexecuted one, and there were some amount within that deed of settlement for Obai. And eventually, we had to do a reconciliation that now warranted a new deed of settlement to be provided. I do remember that that amount has been transmitted to the Presidential Power Initiative, but up until now, we've not received any feedback, neither any agreement to be executed with respect to that payment. And I believe that ab initio, from the first tranche that was paid, I expected that a quota would be allocated to Obai IPP. So I don't know what happened to that particular quota for that. Now for MEP, we've also done full reconciliation with MBEL, apparently transmitted to the same body, but up until now, based on the first tranche that was paid and on the second tranche that is under plan, we've not been able to execute any deed of settlement for either of these 2 power plants. So we're a little bit agitated of what is the issue surrounding these 2 power plants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Israel, for your questions. And you may recall that we concluded the reconciliation with your team. Not with your team, with the Occupy team. That was after the cutoff period of 5th of January, which was the cutoff period for the initial 5 GENCOs that had actually signed their full and final settlement agreements. But we had not concluded with Occupy as at that point in time. Hence the reason why they were not part of that particular settlement. And if you also recall, there was a letter from Occupy previously that had stated that they did not want to be part of the program. But it was now later on that they now said they wanted to be part of the program. Hence the reason they came to NBET and we had a reconciliation with the team. And we had after that, advised principals in regards to the settlement amount that was agreed between us and them. So we also await them to get back to us after they have signed their own settlement agreements, and then hopefully they could also be in the next batch of settlements. But for now, we are yet to hear from them as well. From the OCPI, I don't think they had signed their full and final settlement. They are yet to sign it. Well, I wouldn't know. It's a draft, right? And it's gone to them. In regards to the MEP, we had actually advised the SA Energy's office on the reconciliation we had with MEP. MEP, had they reached out to the SA Energy's officers at that point in time? Because they were supposed to send the draft to them. They would now get back to them in regards to their own opinions or their own feedback on the settlement. Did they reach back to the SA Energy's office?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
There was even a draft that was at the point of execution. But up until now, that draft has not come for our signing. And I want to believe that NBET is central within all of this, especially midwifing between us, the GENCOs, as well as the SA's office that authorizes the payment. So I really expected some form of critical feedback from NBET as well.
Okay,
with
then
regards to that.
After this meeting, you could meet up with us, and then we can pick it up and find out where it is stuck, and then we can try to regularize that, if that's okay with you.
Thank you. My name is Abiodun Ogundare from NGIC.
Okay.
I'm the Executive Director of Finance of NGIC. First and foremost, I think I need to commend the effort, the bold efforts of the parties involved in putting this together. I'm referring to the presidential power debt settlement arrangement. From what we have seen, this is the first time, for a very long time, that government has demonstrated bold effort, to settling this debt. I listened to the MD when he said this is not going to be the total solution, but it's just one of it. But my question is, I want to know the governance framework with respect to these settlements. We've got a couple of GENCOs who've said that they are not signing up to this program. So as a result, they are not coming up for discussion and negotiation. So what are the other options available for NGIC to get their money from such generation companies? That's one. Secondly, you also talked about royalties, and as a gas transporter, we do not pay gas royalty or oil royalty. But recently, we got the approval of the Honorable Minister that since we have a sister company, NEPL, we can take advantage of that. But when we got this approval, we had communications with the Delegate of Gas, Memina to be precise, and she also could not really decode the content of that approval. So we have had engagement with NEPL. At the end of the day, we still need the steer of the body who is in charge to be able to give us the right directive with respect to how NGIC can also take advantage of this royalty settlement. Thank you.
We'll take one more question after now, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. In regards to some of the GENCOs that have not signed into the program, when we actually started this program, a lot of GENCOs were not even interested to have conversations with NBET. It was actually when we went to the market, and then they now saw the impact of the program that they actually started coming. there were days that we had like 2, 3, 4 people in one day wanting to have reconciliation with the team and engage with the team. Hopefully, the GENCO, I don't know which of the GENCOs you currently have an arrangement with, but hopefully they might decide to come on board later. But unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to sign anything or have that with you because we are not contractual parties to you. But I'm sure that within this forum, maybe something could come up, or maybe this royalty program could also help cure your own issues.
I have a question my name is Sunday Okumbo. I have a question for Mr. Fashino. It's around the timing. I don't know the timeline that you're supposed to take this reconciliation back to NRS. You were not clear initially when you answered the question. I just wanted to be clear. What timeline do you have to return this so that the gas suppliers can start recovering their debts? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So like I said earlier, you already have your credit, but we're doing reconciliation right now because to transit between the 2025 to 2026, that we're handing over all the debts and liabilities to NRS. So once we finish this reconciliation, we are equally having a reconciliation with NRS. So by the time we transfer that over, if you're having credit, it will be transferred to them as credit. So it will be in your record. So we already have some sign up with 2 or 3 of the companies. We have 2 or 3 more to go. And once we do that, then we are set to go. But it's effective 31st of December 2025.
Okay, thank you very much. Permit me to raise my question very quickly, which is, maybe I don't expect answers, so it will be more of a comment. Now, my name is Professor Stephen Ogaji from NDPHC. I think what we are doing is just masking the problem. There are issues in the power sector, and I'm happy that Larry Babalola, the SA Power, has the capacity to look at most of these things. The money we have pumped into this sector can turn any sector into a first world sector. Keep pumping money. Even last year, when these bonds and other things were discussed, I attended the meeting, and people were asking, what would you do to stop the bleeding going forward? And they said so many things are in place. It's almost 1 year. It's going to 2 years. Nothing has been done. The issue with Nigerian power sector is 99% politics, 1% technical. The technical is the legal, the regulatory, and all the other things. The solutions are there. But if there is no political will, we'll be at the same point at the end of this year and next year. How much are we talking? Why are people finding it difficult to look at these agreements and other things? The statements of outstandings are published and available with NEC, available with NBET. Why are we looking at it and say, come and take haircuts, come and do this, come and do this? We're not going into that. But we really need to look at the nitty-gritty and find the solution. As vesting contract helped us as a country since 2013 when we privatized, we have been doing vesting contract. You take power from a generating company, you share it, not according to capacity, but according to a quota system to all distribution companies. Whether they pay or not, it doesn't matter. So you keep doing that, and the money is not coming back. When are we going to stop that? When are we going to move into bilateral engagements where you say, government, I have capacity to just fund 200 or 300 megawatts for vulnerable customers. All the others should be traded bilaterally. When are we going to get into the bilateral engagement where people are asked to sign? If you cannot sign, you fail, and somebody takes over and runs the system. If we keep pumping this money, At the end of this year, next year, we'll be saying exactly the same thing. I just want to make a comment. I'm happy about the SA Energy Power is here. The people that can make the decisions are here. Let's solve this problem. Let's not keep masking it. We'll not get anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that will be the end of the Q&A session. Thank you. I'm sure that, yes, all those recommendations, suggestions, and comments, and questions and answers are being recorded. There will be a session when a summary will be presented, and that will be after the presentation that will happen right about now. So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for adding your voices to the conversation, and thank you for enriching the discourse. At this time, we'll move straight to the next presentation. And yes, that will be delivered by a tag team. Ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that gas supply plays a critical role in Nigeria's power generation mix, with natural gas accounting for more than 70% of total power generation. This makes gas sourcing and gas supply assurance a critical success factor going forward as we seek to enhance power sector sustainability by securing the entire gas-to-power value chain. We have yet another presentation that will focus on this. Please make welcome Mr. Ishegun Olonode, Lead Gas Trading at GACN, and Subsurface and GBI Focal, NMPC Gas Master Plan Team, Mr. Abel Igele. Round of applause for both of them. They will coordinate this session.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for all the deliberations that are taking place so far today. It has really been an engaging discussion. Furthermore, we'll just be speaking towards gas sourcing and gas supply assurance, towards securing the gas power value chain. One of the major issues here has been understanding what needs to be taken care of. There are lots of broken links in this chain right now. One of the major issues has also been gas sourcing. But apart from that, if the gas is being sourced, what is the reliability that there will be payment assurance for this particular gas supply, which has been the major issue discussed today. So we'll be walking you through this conversation right now. First, about the gas sourcing efforts that are being made to bring more production into the market. And secondly, the different frameworks that are established and available that can be utilized and institutionalized as well in the sector that will bring about viable and credible, bankable demand, which is the power sector itself. We need to move from a conversation where you're just a gas buyer or to even a bankable platform where people can plan towards even investment to bringing gas production and also sustaining the power sector. So my colleague here will just be speaking quickly around the gas sourcing, and then we'll move on to the gas supply assurance as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ishegun. All right. Thank you. So I'm Abel with the Gas Master Plan team. Just to give a brief overview, we know the Gas Master Plan was launched on the 30th of January 2026. And this plan is a demand-focused plan, really centered around achieving the presidential mandate for 10 BCF per day gas supply in 2027 and 12 BCF per day supply in 2030. What keeps me at night is what do I need to do to ensure that these critical objectives and targets of the presidency is achieved. We're talking about assuring future supply of gas to gas and power, but again, that's a future perspective. But of course, we also have to look at where we're coming from. If you look at the data on the slide here, you can see a steady gas supply to the domestic market out of somewhere around an average of, let's say, 1.5 BCF per day between 2020 and right now, Q1 2026, we see about 1.59. And out of that total volume, gas to power, 0.73. So it tells you that gas to power is the singular most significant off-taker of the domestic gas supply. So what does that tell us? It means that gas supply to the domestic market is heavily anchored on the ability for the gas and power to take that volume and to also present itself as a key value addition, to the gas suppliers. Hence, a lot of the conversation around payment and all of the issues, resolving all of the critical issues are very germane. But let's take a look at what the future holds for us. If you look here, you see a couple of companies, the Chevrons, Sterling, Seplat, Renaissance, and a lot of them are in this room. In 2025, these key suppliers to the domestic market accounted for over 250 BCF supply of gas to the domestic market. And as you know, the domestic market power takes a bigger share of that. And so what is the future like? In the terms, and for us in the Gas Master Plan, we've been steadily focusing on the key upstream development that will bring additional supply to enable us meet that presidential mandate as we go from 2026 into 27. We're doing a lot of work even to assure the 2026 about 1.5 BCF per day addition into gas addition into the gas sector. But again, some people have raised a lot of challenges, and I listened very closely to a lot of comments made by Mr. Ed Ubong, and he has really captured a lot of our thought as well. If you look at 2026 to 2030, there's a steady growth, and these are incremental numbers aggregated from the numbers, the future production forecast we are seeing from these key domestic gas suppliers. And what this really means is that power represents 40%. This all I'm just trying to say here is that the gas is available. A lot of people have concerns. Where is this gas? If you look at from the upstream perspective, it's like, where are the off-takers? If you look at it from the downstream perspective, it's like, where is even the gas? But we at the Gas Master Plan, we stand at the center of these two major groups to find that middle ground. And thankfully, we are working with GACN, we're working with the Decade of Gas, and I'm sure even OPTS, IPPG, and a lot of them have heard from us. We've had series of engagements to ensure that the future demand and future gas supply to gas and power is assured. But again, we cannot overstate the fact there are things that need to be done, and these form the basis for which these volumes can come out. Mr. Ed talked about commerciality. The Gas Master Plan is heavily on commerciality, because we know that for the upstream to commit to investments to develop gas, they need to be assured that there is going to be value, all right? And that's why, again, all that we need to do to ensure that that is in place. So what are we looking at? Critical projects, the delivery of critical projects, the AKK, the OB3, the midline compression system on the ELPS. These projects have, coming alive more than give us enough room to pump additional gas supply to the domestic market. And just like a lot of speakers and Mr. Ed talked about, that gas is there today. But because some of these markets are not ready, they are going to export, all right? He talks about that what do you call it? But it's like a switch box, right? You can switch between the domestic and so the gas is there. As the projects come up, as the demands come up, and as we, with the help, with the vision of the NNPC management, move to complete some of these critical infrastructure projects, we're going to see huge additional volume of gas coming into domestic market, and of course, gas and power taking a big chunk of that. So I'll just yield to my colleague Ishegun to just take us through other key aspects of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abel. So we'll just keep going forward, which will now be speaking towards the gas supply assurance. Now, my colleague Abel has just spoken about the amount of work that is being put in place to actually bring development of additional volumes of production to the market, especially in terms of the domestic markets. Yes, we know that it might be either AG, NAG, but those investments cannot just go blindly. Whatever is going to happen, it should be the fact that at the end of the day, you're seeing value for whatever you've put in. Your investment should be able to return value and revenue to you, which is what we're going to speak to next. So we have already identified that currently Nigeria does not have a gas availability problem. No. What it has is a commercialization and bankability challenge, meaning that yes, we have domestic gas volumes. Producers are willing to also increase their supply. They're also ready to ramp up volumes, but we are constrained by payment discipline. One of the major things that has been stated here, even the conversation around here today, has been about the payment discipline in the market. For the gas to power sector, what exactly are we talking about? Does that speak to your contracting as well? What kind of effective contracts do we have that can actually draw upon payment discipline in the market? We're talking about liquidity too as well. It cuts across the whole value chain, from downstream itself, which is your end user, all the way to the GENCO and then all the way to the GASCO. What is the liquidity in the system itself? Does it allow for you to have effective payment discipline? Secondly, does it allow for you to also go in and securitize your gas supply as well, which is another part that we're also discussing right now. Majority of the contracts that we have in this sector are not bankable in terms of the securitization frameworks that are established for them. What can we do to change that narrative? It's very important that we take that into cognizance. Sustainable gas supply is available, but to ultimately flow to where there's credible and securitized demand. What that means is that basically you're seeing a drive of why the gas to power sector is not attracting sustainable gas supply. Why is it doing that? You're having historical debt accumulation. You're having poor payment discipline. We're having delayed settlement cycles, which again goes back to your contracting. We're having fragmented security structures wherein it's not bankable across the whole value chain. We're also having weak downstream revenue disbursement as well that affect the ability for even the GENCOs to make the necessary payments to their GASCOs. All of this in turn now engages or enforces and enables the suppliers to always channel those volumes of gas to the commercial sectors or the bankable sectors that can actually pay for this supply. So you're seeing, of course, the LNGs, the industrial customers, export markets, even captive power and end users as well, CNG and mini LNG. Those are participants who are more channeled, or the volumes are channeled towards them, because you can actually plan, you can see payment performance from them, and you can also be assured that you get your revenue as well. With doing that, you're going to actually see a lot of the volumes being diverted from the power sector to those respective sectors. I know that's also been spoken about there today. We've seen it, a particular trend coming all the way from maybe 2023 to date right now, how volumes that were naturally being channeled to the power sector are gradually dipping and moving away from that sector towards sectors that are actually going to pay. I know we just spoke about producers and also the forecast of the gas development that's coming on. So we can see that there's a multitude of gas supply that can come into the sector, whether be incremental gas supply, whether it's additional gas supply that's coming in, ramped up volumes, or even incremental portfolio, and also talking about DGDO. So there are different mechanisms that are in place. I think what we're trying to really sound out right here is that the excuses and the excuses need to stop. We need to actually decide with ourselves whether we want to make these solutions work and work together, synergize with all the different stakeholders here to actually create bankable frameworks that can actually allow for development and also allow for revenue generation as well. What producers don't want to see, or what is actually what they are prioritizing right now? Of course, they're prioritizing payment certainty. I will only give volumes to somebody I know who can guarantee me payments. They're talking about transparent allocation. We just talked about in the last presentation, the last communication right now, about what is going on with the technical, in terms of the technical sectors, technical segments of the power sector, in terms of allocation, in terms of evacuation. What is the reality about that? When we're talking about curtailment, what is happening? How do we institutionalize all these particular activities wherein everything is transparent and you can actually see gas flow to the power sector, off-taking, and then also payment delivered for it as well. Credible off-take. We know that a lot of issues also stem from evacuation of power. We're going to hear a lot of conversations around even the ability for the GENCOs to even produce enough capacity or generate enough capacity. We're hearing conversations where they're stepping down their production or even having to channel it because the transmission can't take it. Those issues have to be talked about together. We cannot isolate those conversations. As much as the GENCOs or the power sector is dealing with it, it is directly parallel to what is going to be affecting the GASCO, because you are providing the gas volumes that allow for this generation to take place and the transmission and evacuation of power and energy to respective off-takers. So we are no longer talking about gas supply being a production issue right now. It's actually a risk management decision. Will I decide to make investments? Will I decide to put in, develop production for the power sector when I'm not guaranteed payments? We need to change that narrative. We need to make sure that the power sector now becomes the bankable platform where we can actually plan investment with. My colleague just spoke about how we take over almost close to 40% of the gas supply in the sector. If you're taking over close to 40%, you should be able to drive investment for additional production as well. Now, in terms of what we're talking about, different bespoke or dynamic structures that are available, there are particular frameworks that are being established, and GACN is also trying to work with respective parties here to try and see if we can commercialize and also implement. The major issue around securitization has been a linchpin in terms of how the market securitizes gas or even makes gas available. What we've done here is trying to ring fence this particular solution. Supply going from the producers to the GENCO and then to the direct off-takers. What we've also seen and we've identified is that these respective off-takers or end users, they can vary in terms of security that they make available, which has been a major issue. You might have fragmented security. You can have maybe a multiple of prepayments, LCs, BGs, and security deposits. You're unable to take all of that and meet a GASCO and say, okay, I want to collect gas for this particular volume to generate this particular amount of energy for these off-takers when you're having fragmented security. What GACN is working to do is, and with the respectable financial institutions here too right now, is how we can collapse all of that, consolidate those different security being offered by respective end users or off-takers for energy into one centralized security, which is now taken and then given to the GASCO, underpinning the volumes that are going to be required to generate the necessary energy for those off-takers. So you're only dealing with what capacity you can take. You're not going above, as I remember Professor Ogaji just spoke about that now, about the terms of even distribution of power. You're dealing with actually the direct off-takers who are going to take this particular energy content and you're calculating it on parallel to the volumes that will be required to meet this energy. So you are not exposed at any point in time to taking more volumes that you require, and at the same time, you're securing the energy that will be provided to these respective off-takers that they are going to pay for. So if you just see through this framework, the off-takers, of course, provide that security to the GENCO and the escrow bank that has been identified. That particular escrow entity or the securitized energy offtake is then providing that security, likewise, to the supplier through his supply facilitator, GACN, and then you're able to underpin those volumes. Likewise, for payments, revenue comes in from those off-takers directly to the securitized offtake platform, and then that payment is also made directly to the revenue, or the revenue is also made directly to their GASCOs using the escrow platforms that are made available. What this just does is that it establishes a centralized bankable revolving escrow-based system where you are able to guarantee supply and you're tying it to the GENCOs while they're also protecting the upstream for suppliers. Nobody's being exposed in this situation. You're only working with what is within your capacity. And what we're trying to also identify here is why do you need to create situations that you cannot guarantee? Especially talking about liability. Why take on additional liability when you can actually ring-fence it? So there are lots of solutions available. I think that's what we're trying to really sell here, that can actually be adopted in the market. As we are sitting here together in this room, you might have a solution, you might have a strategy, you might have a plan that if we just sit down together, either from the GASCO, from the GENCO, even from the downstream, the DISCOs, we can identify a chain that can actually provide the necessary security that can make the suppliers or producers engaged and enable us to also produce volumes that can also come to the market. So we're just looking at de-risking payments, which has been the crux of the issue in terms of guaranteeing supply to the sector. Now, what we're going to identify, or what we're trying to move away from, is the current or traditional model, which we had fragmented agreements that could not really that could not really be enforced, basically. We're moving away from situations where even revenue generation or revenue payment is being delayed. We're moving away from that. So we have to get to an updated or optimized gas-to-power model. In doing so, what are the requirements that we see? One of the major things that will be required to be able to move into this new model will be, of course, escrow-backed settlements, wherein can you have escrow guarantees for the supply that's being made available. Even you as a GENCO or for the power sector, you have to make sure that this cuts across your whole value chain, all the way from you as a GENCO to your DISCO or your particular off-taker. Market discipline. One of the major issues around market discipline is about how efficient we are in the actions that are taking place in this sector. The Nigerian electricity supply industry has different segments of it. What is the market discipline there that can ensure that you as a producer, you are guaranteed, you can go to bed knowing that the gas volumes you're putting to the market will make sure that will come back to you with the revenue that's due and parallel to what you've also put in as well. We're talking about coordinated stakeholder alignment. An example is what we're having here today. We need to have more engagement like this where we're open with each other, where we're no more discussing in silos, where everybody can understand what the issues are plaguing the respective segments of the sector and how we can work together to deal with it and also solve those issues. If a Genco is telling you that this is what his issue is affecting him, we cannot just disregard it. We have to actually identify it and get it sorted out. Lastly, will be about structured supply frameworks. Structured supply frameworks speak to the kind of agreements that we need to sign. We've talked about bilateral arrangements. NEC has worked hard enough to also create different platforms that can enable the sector itself. What are we doing to enable them? What are we doing to activate them? Are they just meant to be policy statements that are just going to lie in paper? What can we do to make sure that they become bankable itself? So we're saying we want to move the power sector from being just a gas buyer. You now need to become a bankable energy offtake platform, wherein we can see strong commercial credibility with you. I don't need to be worried about your payment performance. I can see that my risk and assurance is with you. Whatever conditions are put in agreements, I can call on them. They are bankable, they are enforceable. I can also see that likewise, that this is reliable demand. I'm not going to be switched off at any point in time. I can actually depend on you as a strategic off-taker, and I can build long-term with you. If we're looking at projected demand, we're seeing that the market is 40%. If I'm going to grow it to about 10 BCF per day, we already know that the power sector is going to take a major chunk of that. What can you do to guarantee that sector getting the supply? The only way you can do that is that you, or as the sector, now turns into a bankable platform, wherein just like the suppliers are spoken about here, if I'm going to invest, if I'm going to, even in terms about the commercial considerations, if I'm going to put all of that on the line, I should have a line of sight to the fact that, yes, this is what you're going to take from me. This is my expectations from you. This is the revenue I'm expecting to get from you that can allow me to forecast, especially development, towards your own particular needs. So we need to become bankable, basically is what we're trying to say. We need to move away from being a high-risk sector. The sector itself needs to become one where people can be comfortable enough to discuss and also come into, even make investments as well. This is what we're trying to just sell, the narrative that we're trying to do. And the components that can activate it, of course, we have talked about back-to-back gas payment assurance mechanisms. If you're making gas available to the market, you should be able to see that cut across to the respective end users in that sector. So that value chain cannot be broken. If gas supply is made available to a Genco, that Genco should have also backed up guaranteed agreements with their off-taker, which is either their disco or direct off-taker, depending on the kind of arrangements that they have. And likewise, that should be cascaded down to the final end user. Across the value chain, it should be back-to-back assurances. We should also have ring-fenced gas securitization mechanisms, which is what we just displayed earlier. You can actually make it work. You're already talking about bilateral arrangements. If you're going to be speaking to a bilateral arrangement, you should have ring-fenced even the supply and offtake of the energy that you're going to be producing and tying it to the gas supply that will be required for it. You're not taking more gas than you need. You're only taking the gas will be required to meet that particular energy requirement. We also talk about replenishment frameworks. I know we've spoken about the different mechanisms that the government is trying to put in place. How can we imbibe them into what we're trying to do? Can you place them in your respective agreements that you can guarantee payments as well? We're looking at also upstream assurance and recovery protection. If you're an upstream party and you're making gas volumes available, you want to know that your security can be called upon. Can we have enforceable security mechanisms in place too? So these are the kind of conversations that we need to also be open with ourselves and have, and see how we can work these solutions into becoming a reality for the sector. So in an action framework, the narrative, and I think what we're really trying to sell here, is that gas is available. The argument or the conversation is not valid. Gas is available. The market must now become credible enough to attract it. If you want this gas, you have to attract it. What are the things you need to do to attract it? We're speaking about it here. Let us work towards achieving that particular objective. We already told you that incremental supply exists. We already told you that upstream willingness to also go for additional development exists. Market demand exists. As we are having conversations in this room, I've had different engagements where people are requesting for additional gas supply. Your demand is keeping to grow. So that demand actually exists. Now, the missing link is commercial sustainability or security. So how can we make sure that that broken link is achieved, or we merge it, or we plug that gap? We need to accelerate the debt settlement implementation, which I know part of discussions here have been talked about, which is going to also take place. We also need to institutionalize escrow-backed payment security structures where we know that this is now enforceable. It's not just paper or statements in a document, but you can actually draw down upon them. Align supply with credible demand. We also need to be very And working with the gas master plan team is also what we're working on, where we're trying to identify credible demand to actual supply. In terms of own development for this actual supply, we're going to tie it to actual credible demand. That is what is going to drive investment. We cannot just keep investing or developing in just in oblivion. It has to be direct and dedicated actions to get those volumes out of the ground. We also need to develop a market-wide supply assurance framework. What do we mean by that particularly? We're saying that whatever is going to guarantee supply, it should be institutionalized. It should not just be on, let's say, hallway conversations. By the time you're having this conversation, we have the different regulators here represented. How can we take these different conversations or different frameworks when it cannot become part or institutionalized as regulations that can go forward? We need to be able to achieve that, where now the market is secure and comfort is guaranteed that, okay, this is now in place and it's not just a conversation anymore. We need to strengthen, of course, regulator market coordination, which we're doing here. And then lastly, we'll be creating long-term bankable demand. We have already identified that, yes, the power sector is the major off-taker and demand in the segment, in the sector or in the Nigerian gas market. What can we make sure that you become the people that we can depend on and we can also drive development for? We spoke about it already earlier in previous slides about how you can drive investment with you actually creating the necessary actions that you need to take by ensuring that you can either show discipline by security, show discipline by payment, and then also show discipline by guaranteed offtake. These different actions will, of course, grow the gas to power sector and make sure that it now becomes the reasonable and reliable sector for gas development in the country. So in terms of gas supply assurance, we have communicated to you that there's gas. In terms of gas sourcing, we have communicated to you that there's gas. And in terms of gas supply assurance, we have told you that there are frameworks that can work. There are frameworks that can be institutionalized. There are frameworks that we can place and guarantee on in the market. We just have to be willing to work together to make them reality. I think that will be it for us today. Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the tag team. Thank you very much. Lead Gas Trading, GACN, Mr. Ishegun Olonode. Thank you very much. Subsurface and GBI Focal, NNPC Gas Master Plan Team, Mr. Abel Igele. Thank you very much for that presentation. And yes, that presentation has provided insights into gas sourcing and gas supply assurance. Of particular interest to us is the action framework. It's not just about talk, it's not just about policy. We really need to see strategic action points, and thank you very much for putting all of that together. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to beg your indulgence. Please give them another round of applause. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have been sitting since 12:01. So I think it's important that we stretch our bodies just a little bit. After now, we are going to have the summary of the deliberations and the action matrix. So if you consult your program, you find that we have the summary of the action matrix, the summary of deliberations, and the action matrix, and that will be presented shortly. It is being compiled as we speak, so I'm just going to give our presenter like 5 or so minutes so that can be sorted out very, very quickly. So in the meantime, I would like to beg your indulgence. Please just rise. May I respectfully ask that you all rise? Allow me to beg your indulgence. Please, let's just rise. Let's just stretch for like 2 or 3 minutes. Then we invite our speaker for the summary of deliberations. He will also give us an idea of what the action matrix is all about. So you can stretch your hands to the right, stretch your hands to the left, twist from right to left as you turn. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, all eyes on the friendly MC, please. Okay, I'm coordinating this session. Thank you very much. All right, so join me. Right hand, stretch it out. Just ensure that you're not poking your hand in your neighbor's eyes, okay? All right, we don't want to have an emergency on our hands anytime soon. So just stretch out your right hand. Stretch out your right hand a bit. Stretch out your right hand a bit. All right, let's move. Left hand, stretch out your left hand a bit. Left hand, let the stiffness dissolve, so to speak. All right, right leg, just a little bit. Just move it Just stretch it a little bit. Right leg, just stretch it a little bit. Stretch it, stretch it. It looks like Mr. Ed Ubong played football professionally. I can see the steps. All right, left leg, just stretch a little bit, stretch a little bit, stretch a little bit, stretch a little bit. From the left to the right, from the left to the right, from the left to the right, from the left to the right. Thank you very much. Left to right, left to right, left to right. Thank you. Left to right, left to right. Thank you. Don't twist to the point that you hear a crack. Aha. Okay, just a little bit. Aha, aha. Just to ensure maximum mobility. Aha. Thank you. That is more like it. And finally, jog on the spot, 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 jog on the spot. Just bounce a little bit, bounce, bounce. Feel it in your toes, feel it on your heels. Jog on the spot, 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 jog on the spot. Aha. Ha, jog on the spot. Thank you very much. Jog on the spot. Jog on the spot. All right. If you can do it, bend forward just a bit. Bend forward a bit. Just ensure that there's ample space in front of you so you don't bump into someone. Aha. Just bend forward a bit. Just bend forward. Watch me. Watch me. Watch me. Bend forward a bit. Bend forward a bit. And finally, bend backwards. To the back. To the back. To the back, 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 to the back. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Feel free to consult me for physical fitness exercises. You can tell me pro, right? Yes. All right, thank you very much. You may all be seated. Thank you very much. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. All right, you may all be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Let's all be seated. We'll have the summary right about now. So let us all be seated. So yes, we've had a most interesting time. We started right about 10:10, and we moved from the welcome address, the opening remarks. We took special remarks from the EVP Gas and Power. We moved on to goodwill messages from CCE, NUPRC, ACE, NMDPRA, NERC, Honorable Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Gas, Honorable Minister of Power, and we moved on to the first presentation, Gas-to-Power Sustainability Initiative, after which we had a break, moved on to the implementation update on the power sector debt reduction program, after which we moved on to the next presentation, which was securing the gas-to-power value chain with focus on gas sourcing and supply assurance. So that's the rundown of every activity we've had for today. To give us a summary of the deliberation so far and to present to us the action matrix, please join me to welcome Principal Counsel at GACN, Kufri Meadow. Round of applause for him as he takes the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you again for taking the time to come out here today and for your attention so far. So I'll just be taking a few minutes to round off what we've discussed throughout the sessions today. Recall we had 3 general presentations from Decade of Gas. We had from NBET, we had from NEC, and then we had from GACN and Gas Master Plan. So when we were listening to the Decade of Gas presentation on the Presidential Power Sector Debt Reduction Program and Liquidity Sustainability Framework implementation, the session focused on the challenges that we have in the gas-to-power value chain, particularly the gap between improved gas revenue collection and poor remittance to producers. The need for stronger collaboration across the sector was a major concern, noting the resolving gas producer debts, which makes about 70% of the total sector debt, is critical to improving power supply sustainability. Regarding the action points, which are the critical things for us here today, one of them was aligning thermal and hydro generation planning to improve energy reliability during outages or interruptions. This will be responsibility of the GENCOs, TCN, and other stakeholders, coordinating plant maintenance across upstream assets, thermal plants, and transmission infrastructure. This is all of us, generally speaking. Ensuring gas supply discussions include generation capability and transmission readiness, not just gas availability. And this is a theme that has been cutting across everybody's presentation. It's not enough to just have the gas, but also the capability and transmission readiness and being able to utilize that gas properly to derive value. Maintaining continuous coordination and communication across the value chain. So that's another thing that was quite on theme for us today, communication across the stakeholders to ensure there's no gaps at all or to reduce the likelihood of gaps. Developing a more predictable and stable gas pricing framework to support investments. This is something that was directed at NMDPRA as well, and a key issue for a lot of us here in this room. And finally, for the first presentation, defining the requirements for transitioning to a willing buyer, willing seller market structure, and defining, importantly, the parameters of what it means to be market mature. What does market maturity mean, essentially? And of course, the possible amendments to the PIE with a timeline provided. So this is something, again, that Decade of Gas Initiative has handled, has spoken about, and this would be for all of us generally to handle. So the second session we listened to was taken by NBET and NUPRC on the status of the gas-to-power debt settlement, which is something that generated quite a lot of questions, as well as some personal examples that people had brought up. So it focused on the liquidity challenges within the sector and ongoing efforts by NBET and NUPRC to address these legacy gas and generation debts through the bond program. Within that defined framework of February 2015 to March 2025, reconciliation, policy interventions, etc. And the stakeholders, of course, emphasizing that this bond program is not a standalone solution. That's another thing that kept on being recurring. It's not a standalone solution, but part of a broader reform structure aimed at, of course, improving the general sector to prevent, including those long-term structural reforms to prevent the sectoral bleeding. So for the action points, it was more about accelerating reconciliation and liquidation of the validated debts and finalize those timelines for bond issuance. The timelines were another thing that was brought up quite often. So we also had ensuring that producers notify NBET on the royalty offsets to prevent double payments. That's something that the CFO also mentioned. So continuing those policy reforms, expanding mass metering initiatives, talking about what the NBET MD had spoken about, those broader reforms that were ongoing, and strengthening bilateral engagement between government and market participants to develop, again, these long-term structural solutions, as well as completing these reconciliation for liabilities, transitioning into the NRS framework. So a lot of it was about the reconciliation, the validation, the timelines, and also those others, again, it's not just a standalone reform, but those other solutions that are available, which would be a mix of policy and the bond program. So the final session that we had was taken by GACN and Gas Master Plan, which was on securing the gas to power value chain, gas sourcing and gas supply assurance. So this presentation emphasized that Nigeria's gas to power challenge is no longer gas availability, but more of commercial credibility. And that's something I know resonates with a lot of us in this room. While domestic gas supply production continues to grow, long-term supply assurance now depends on creating these enforceable and bankable structures. So during the presentation, GACN introduced us to what we call the future of gas to power model, proposing a sort of centralized escrow-backed payment security just to consolidate these fragmented security arrangements, protect the upstream suppliers, and generally stabilize the market, including stabilizing cash flows, and ensuring continuous gas flow to the GENCOs as well. So this framework was aimed at improving the market discipline. That's something that Mr. Ishegun had emphasized. Market discipline is quite important, strengthening the value chain liquidity and securing sustainable gas to power operations across the sector, and generally moving the GENCOs from being seen as or being perceived as gas buyers to bankable energy offtake platforms. And so regarding the action items, generally this will apply to all of us in this room, accelerating the debt settlement implementation, as well as aligning supply with credible demand, institutionalizing this escrow-backed payment structure, which I'm sure triggered a lot of interest in this room today. Developing market-wide supply assurance framework, which again will be anchored on the structure that we had put in, or we as GACN had proposed in the slide that Mr. Shego and Mr. Abel had put forward, strengthening regulator market coordination, and finally would be creating long-term bankable gas-to-power ecosystem. So generally, we can see there's a general theme across all the presentations that we heard, with everybody emphasizing the communication across the sector. Like everybody has spoken to during the goodwill messages sector, during the welcome remarks sector, there needs to be communication, so we're not working in silos. Because when you then hear what other people are doing, you'll be surprised that within your internal structures, you already have that in place. So this hopefully summarizes the discussions and deliberations that were had today. A more robust document will be shared to all parties, but hopefully this suffices for our purposes this afternoon. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening.
You will agree with me that that was a comprehensive summary. Imagine having to distill many hours of thoughts, of words, and of processes in 10 minutes. Allow me to beg your indulgence. Please give him another round of applause. Thank you very much, Kufri Meadow, Principal Counsel, GACN. Thank you for that summary. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, that was a summary of the deliberations, and yes, we've listened to him speak on that. It is now time for us to take words from the Special Advisor to the President on Power, who will give the closing remarks and vote of thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, with a warm round of applause, please make welcome Dr. Lanre Babalola. Round of applause for him, Special Advisor to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on Power.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As everyone who has climbed this stage said, I stand on existing protocol. It's indeed a pleasure to be here this afternoon. And I met Chijioke just about a week or so ago when this journey started. And now I know why he was very nice to me. It was a minor coup. But what he didn't realize was actually was glad to be sucked into this, because the importance of gas to power is not lost on me. And I want to thank you very much for the persistence, very subtle, but persistent nonetheless. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I said, it's indeed a pleasure to be here. I want to thank GACN, NBET, and all the other co-conveners of this important engagement, and for the honor bestowed on me to make some closing remarks. Little did you know that my plan was to be the first here and the last to leave, for the simple reason that I'd like to hear from everybody involved in this gas supply value chain. And I've not been disappointed. The discussions, the comments have been very incisive and substantive, and most importantly, very candid. The deliberations, presentations today have really laid bare, with commendable precision, the structural nature of the challenge we face. A gas-to-power value chain in which payment insecurity at the downstream end cascades into supply insecurity at the upstream end, with the consequence that a country so well endowed with and being the ninth largest natural gas, with the ninth largest gas reserve in the world, cannot reliably supply itself gas to power its economy. I mean, that is should be quite sobering for all of us. And it has been like this for decades. The diagnosis we had this afternoon is spot on, and today's discussion has sharpened our minds, if nothing else. Before I talk about, or before I go on to with my concluding remarks, I'd like to just make a few comments. First of all, I want to thank the gas fraternity. It's without you guys here, I don't think the power sector would survive. And the forbearance that you displayed is most commendable. I'm saying this not just because we just want to placate you, but we know that going forward, without you coming on board, without winning your confidence, we would not see the better future, the better tomorrow that you want the future to be. I commiserate with NBET. I'm sure in no time at all it's going to go gray and bald as well. It's a humongous challenge, and I think we need to be very, very frank with ourselves. This reality we find ourselves in today is nothing new. Some of us predicted this as far back as 2003. Some of us felt we knew better, but the parameters that we set in motion then is what accounts for where we are today. It's a shame, but this is where we find ourselves. And sometimes I think when we look at things, when we look at situations, we have to look at 360 degrees. It's not just about protecting a position. It's not just about the turf protection. It's beyond that. I'm sure if I go around this room now, most of us don't have our kids in this country because of lack of opportunities. And central to that is lack of energy, reliable energy supply. I don't think, personally, it doesn't make me very happy, but this is our reality, and we want the best for our children, for the country, and we have to come back to this to really, really address this problem. If this was predicted 20-something years ago, and as someone said earlier, I think it was Prof. that said that you'll probably come back in 20 years' time, and so we'll still be discussing the same thing. God forbid, that's what everybody will say. But I assure you, we will come back to discuss this. At least we'll be hearing our children discuss the same thing again. And this should not be the case. Also, just a quick digression. You mentioned this issue of vesting contracts and those that can buy power should pay for it. This was, again, because it was envisaged, we saw this. And that was why we instituted a hybrid system in the repealed power legislation to allow that at no point in time, because to be a very, very responsible government that will say that, only those that can buy power should buy power and they also go to rest, to go to hell. It's not possible. That would be most irresponsible. And the idea at that time was that you should get at least what you were getting in the old system. And that was the rationale behind the vesting contract. And the discourse that could be strong enough, more credible, should be able to enter into bilateral contracts. And in so doing, you also, by having competition, you drive more efficiency into the system, and everybody will be, you pick everybody up. You shouldn't have a case where you have Pareto improvement ignored. Don't make anybody worse off. And at the time, we should say that if we're not sure of what we're doing with this power sector, with this reform, let's leave it alone. We can end up opening Pandora's box, which could collapse the economy, collapse the country. And by Jove, we're not too far from there today. I think it's perhaps an opportune time for us to come back to the table. The truth of the matter is that where we are today is not sustainable. No matter where you look at it in the sector, it is not sustainable. And some of us that were fighting selfish interests at the time, that, I don't want to put guarantees in place because, I don't want to spend another $5 million or whatever the case was. We're now in a position where we're owing you $50 billion. So perhaps that little commitment would have, which, just like insurance, nobody likes paying it, but the day you need it, it will come to save the day. We chose not to have insurance in place, and this is the price everybody's paying today. It's not just me being clever, me trying to improve my profitability by withholding some expenditure. We are here today. I've heard a lot about market commercial indiscipline. Anyway, we won't go into the details. I came into this room thinking that I'll see more of power sector people. You guys have done what is expected of you as a sector when it comes to gas supply. The truth of the matter is that the power sector is the terrible child that has refused to grow up and has refused to do the right thing. I think when you listen to just going back to the action framework, there's no more you can do than that. It's now for the power sector to rise up to the challenge and reciprocate and do things properly. And I want to assure you today that as a special advisor to the President on Power and chairman of the newly established task force on power sector reset and restoration, I want to be very direct with you guys in this room today. As I said earlier, you represent a critical value of the segment of the value chain. This is not another committee. It is not another announcement. The committee itself, the task force, is a full-time undertaking, staffed with full-time experts to tackle this problem. We have a very specific mandate, very defined timeline, established under direct presidential authority, precisely because of the complexity and the urgency of the problem that demands immediate action. The debt settlement is a critical aspect of the mandate, and we intend to build on what has been done with the debt resettlement program. The gas supply assurance, we know that without encouraging the gas suppliers, there cannot be additional power. In my mind, it's very clear why we're stuck at 4,000 megawatts. If you look at how much has been spent over the years, 4,000 megawatts is not just because we cannot move beyond that. That is the low-level equilibrium position the sector is comfortable with. We know that bulk of the gas is associated gas. You have to produce your oil. If you flare the gas, you pay penalties. You have to produce the oil, and so you have to push the gas somewhere. And power is the natural sink, but that sink is not with good plumbing. So we need to find a way to fix that plumbing. We will work very closely with GACN, with NBET, to make sure that some of these issues are dealt with NMPCL, NMDPRA, NUPRC, and every other, and all you guys in this room, because the first thing we need, and it's very, very simple. If you heard Mr. President speak, he identified 3 or 4 areas. The first thing is that we need to stabilize the industry. This wide oscillation between 3,000 megawatts and 5,000 megawatts is just cannot grow that way. It's not encouraging for anyone. And the more power you push in, the more debt you also accumulate, which is, it chokes the macroeconomic space for the whole country. The second area is how to make the energy flow more resilient, and the money flow back to the gas suppliers all the way at the top end of the value chain more credible. Then we can talk about building from 4,000 megawatts to 5,000 megawatts. You hear a lot about not having enough capacity in transmission. We have 14,000 in generation. According to the NISO report, some of you probably see, the peak capability in generation that I saw, and this document is in the public domain, is less than 8,000 megawatts. Less than 8,000 megawatts. So there's a huge disparity between what is claimed in terms of installed capacity and what is capable of generating power. If you bring the 10,000 megawatts, that's equivalent of gas today, it cannot be taken because most of those plants are just not there. And we have to be very frank with ourselves. If what we can do today, if the bottleneck is in transmission or distribution, and it's no more than 5,000 megawatts, well, you know what? Well, that's all we can do. And then we try and build on it. Sign up for another billion cup of gas a day is just not sensible. You're just accumulating more liabilities, more debts. And the more you get into that, the difficulty of getting out of it becomes more profound. So we have to be, again, this is where we have to be truthful with ourselves and say that what can we really do? That's on one hand. And then we now start looking at the whole problem again, is that what is the underlying fundamental problem to all this? And in my mind, it's very, very simple. Inefficiency and losses. Inefficiency doesn't mean trying to just A, T, C, and C. It also talks about procurement. When we contract capacity in Nigeria, look at what happens in the rest of the world. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. Of course, this is all Chatham. And we're talking about roads and why we cannot have good roads in Nigeria. And so we did some quick research. And we found that it costs about $2.3 million to build a kilometer of road in Nigeria. $2.3 million, which, when you hear that sort of figure, there's no comparison. If there's nothing to compare that to, it doesn't sound so bad. When I went on to check the average price in Africa for such construction, not in Europe, Africa, that we also have they have their own issues as we do, but it costs $700,000 per kilometer. So Nigeria is 3x what happens in other countries. So to build a 100-kilometer road will cost us $230 million. In Africa, it's $70 million. And we have to try and recover. If you're going to charge people, and you cannot charge them 3 times as much, so it's only a question of time before the economics break. The same thing applies in the power sector. So it's not just about, cost reflectivity. I was one of the people that put the MITO in place. Oh, and by the way, you're talking about price. I think it was Patrick, they're talking about price variability in gas supply for investment purposes. Perhaps you should learn from the power sector, the MYTO. It's more predictable over a 5-year period. So it's not so much the movement, but at least if I know that it's moving there's a correction every year for inflation, for interest rate, exchange rate, then I can plan. So you don't have to have it fixed at a particular point in time. So anyway, those are the sort of issues that informed everything. And at the time, for instance, when we did the MITO, the exchange rate was no more than 100 naira to the dollar. If you said to anybody at that time, we were talking about 2,000 naira to the dollar, at some point you say you're mad. So there was no way that could go into the model. But this is where we are today. There are many issues to talk about without going into the details, the nitty-gritty of whether it is the periodic review, whether it's the annual review that should be done, what drives it. Of course, gas is a pass-through. Why are some people paying about? Why do you have some prices for gas, or price for gas in some situations as high as about $3, $4, $5, $9? It's not so much that. So there's so many things to look at the same time. We're very clear as to what needs to be done. Again, I want to acknowledge the gas supply specifically. You have continued to supply gas to a market which is not very reliable. And the consequences of that is non-payment. Diversion of gas doesn't cause a surprise. At the end of the day, you have a business to run. But I want to assure you that efforts this time is to address the fundamentals, not just to pay the debt. The more gas you give the power sector, the more power they produce without addressing some of the losses. Whether this is 8% in transmission or 10% in transmission is still significant. The best practice in the world is about 2-3%. So that means if I take 10%, for every 1,000 megawatts you produce, you already lose 100 megawatts before it enters a low voltage network. By the time it gets into that, you can argue whether it is 15% or 12%. It's still a substantial amount of power you're losing. So before it gets to customers, you've already lost 25%. If a company can boast of 25% profit on the cost, but that is what we're losing. And then they consume the power, and as much as a quarter of that is not paid for. And then you have a system that allows, that does not allow money to flow back to the owners of the money. It's chaos. So this is where we are, and I say to you that we are aware of this. We've had extensive discussions. We're working on, I've spoken to 1 or 2 of my colleagues and 1 or 2 other ministries to point all of this out. We need to come back to the table. It's not just for want of expression that the president used the terms reset and restoration. It's not reset to try and recalibrate the whole sector, but there's certain fundamentals that need to be addressed. And I believe that by looking at those things, we can actually start seeing progress. It's not something that will happen overnight. It's not something that even when you put those things in place, you see power improve within 2 years. It's a long time undertaking. And at least the one thing I haven't perfected is how to lie. So when they ask me, I always tell the truth. Can you fix this power I'll give you a good anecdote. When I was in office, they tried to put pressure on me to declare an emergency. I said, for what? Emergency, people said the power's in crisis. Power sector is in crisis. Emergency? There's no emergency in the power sector. If you hear a big explosion in your neighborhood, and it's your substation transformer that's blown up, and it's very unfortunate, it's a big one, it might take the sector as much as 24 months to replace it at best. And we don't have spares of these things in Nigeria. They're not built in Nigeria. The system is, when it comes to planning, not where it should. It's not run that way. So this is the reality that unless we start focusing our minds, and I think part of what I'm saying so much today is to actually understand the gravity, the enormity of the challenges at hand. Even when the money is paid, as a number of people have said today, it doesn't mean it to solve the problem. We can be, if we pay all these money to get money, and whether it's another bond issue, you pay everything, you come back in 5 years' time without addressing the fundamental problems. We'll be talking about how do we issue another bond to address this. I think there's certain things that we need to do, work closely with the gas ecosystem to make sure that gas to power sector is bankable, to make sure that there's credibility in that relationship. And I think for me that is the starting point. I say this to you today not because I'm here, but because that is what I strongly believe. If we're going to get to 5,000 megawatts, sustainably 6,000 megawatts, the only way for us is gas. Solar panels and they're nice haves, but it's not going to move Nigeria forward in terms of trying to industrialize. It's not going to address things in terms of affordability. It's still gas. And we're blessed with gas. We just have to make sure that we do it in such a way that we keep encouraging the gas fraternity to come to the table. And the beauty of the whole thing is that power is still what it is. It has a lot of demand, a lot of pent-up demand, and we just have to become a lot more responsible in the way we do this. And I want to assure you that at least when it comes to that, everything said in this room this afternoon, I'm a full follower of it. So I'm a full supporter, and we just make sure we talk all the time. I have Herab here from NEC, sitting in the position I sat in a long time ago. So we understand each other. We know what needs to be done. And I think they can count on my support as well to make sure that at least in terms of coordination, in terms of leadership, we get the sector to the right place. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I hope you've had a wonderful afternoon, or first half of the day, and I pray that your second half is better than this, or maybe not as good as this in terms of conversation.
Very, very insightful closing remarks. And yes, he has indeed raised quite a number of points for reflection. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the special advisor to the President on Power, Dr. Lanre Babalola. Thank you very much for those insights. Thank you very much for those words. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that yes, now is a good time to smile, because we have come to the end of today's proceedings. So ladies and gentlemen, the Power Sector Sustainability Framework Implementation Assurance event, the Gas-to-Power Stakeholders Engagement, is officially wrapping up. So we are officially on a lunch break. So yes, I want to beg your indulgence as you leave the hall. Please ensure you leave with your personal possessions. Once you get to the registration desk, You just have to walk straight down the length of the corridor. You'll get to the restaurant. At the entrance to the restaurant, you'll be given a meal ticket, so that will give you access into the restaurant, and you'll enjoy your meal. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your presence, and most importantly, thank you for your contributions. On behalf of GACN and NBET, I want to say thank you for coming, and thank you for making today worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap. Thank you.